Hi, beautiful people. Happy Monday. It's Monday. Some of you it's Tuesday already. I'm going to update you on Iran really quickly. Thank you guys that support my channel. These streams are not easy to do, so I appreciate you guys' support. I'm going to get right into the video, as always. That's this one.
Ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this. Let me provide a brief update on
What's good,
Operation
Mardo?
Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to American forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped, but everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out. And they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful by far military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. There's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now. I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership. And as you know, that was done in about an hour. So we're ahead of schedule there by a lot. But please join me in thanking every American serviceman who bravely is standing in harm's way. They really are incredible. And I just want to thank you. We have a lot of them right here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We have a lot of great service members here with us, too, in this beautiful building. Isn't it beautiful? We're adding on to the building a little bit. We're improving the building. See that nice drape? When that comes down right now, you see a very, very deep hole. But in about a year and a half from now, you're going to see a very, very beautiful building. And there's your entrance to it right there. In fact, it looks so nice, I think I'll save money on the doors, because it can't get more beautiful than that. I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold, but I think we can save a lot of money. I just saved curtains. But and it'll be spectacular. It'll be the most beautiful ballroom. I believe it, because I built many a ballroom. I believe it's going to be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world. And when you hear all that hammering out there, you know why the First Lady is not thrilled exactly. She said, will the pile drivers ever stop? You know, they go from 6 in the morning till 11:30 in the evening. Can you imagine? Here? You know what? To me, that's a beautiful sound. She doesn't like it. I love it. You know what? To me, other than here, because we're donating it, not a penny to the taxpayer. It'll be under budget, ahead of schedule. It'll be 400 million or less. Most people say 400 million or more. No, it'll be less. But when I hear that sound, that beautiful sound behind me, it means money. So I like it. But my wife isn't thrilled. She said, this is getting crazy. I said, don't worry about it. We'll be all finished up in a few months. But now, for the reason that we're gathered this morning, to recognize the unsurpassed courage of 3 really incredible American heroes, 1 living and 2 no longer with us. So together, we recognize the exceptional valor of Master Sergeant Roderick Edmonds. And maybe I could ask your families to stand, because they're beautiful families. I got to meet them. And please. So Staff Sergeant Michael Ollis and Command Sergeant Major Terry Richardson, as they receive our nation's highest military award, the Congressional Medal of Honor. And we're pleased to be joined by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He's busy, very busy guy. In fact, I said, if you want, Pete, you can avoid it. General Raisin Kane also. And they said, we don't avoid this one. This is one you wouldn't avoid for anything, right? So we appreciate that you're here. Secretary of Veterans Affairs, who's doing an incredible job, Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins. Doug, thank you. You stand up, Doug. You're doing such a good job. 92% approval rating. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, who's known as Raisin Kane. I liked him when I heard that name, Raisin Kane. I said, if it's true, you're my guy. And it's true. It's turned out it's very true. He's a great guy and a great general. Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, and Army Chief of Staff, Randy George. Thank you. Thank you both, Dan. As well as Senators Tom Cotton, Bill Hagerty. You guys were great on television this weekend. I'll tell you what, can't have a better representative than both of you. Thank you very much. And Representatives Tim Burchett, Jack Bergman, and Nicole Malliotakis. So we have a few others sitting here, but I'm not going to go through it because we have far more important people to honor today. Oh, we have Tom Homan. I got to at least mention Tom Homan. I would be a stand-up, Tom. What a job. Zero people coming in. We had millions and millions of people pouring into our country now that, I mean, I'm not even sure I can believe this number is zero, but it is given out by Democrats from the left, and they're rated for the last 9 months. We had 0 people come illegally through our border. Right, Tom? So I want to thank you very much. And I also want to salute 6 former Medal of Honor recipients: William Swenson, Jim McLuhan, Walter Marm, Thomas Paine, Sammy Davis. That's an interesting guy. Where is Sammy Davis? We have a big story here, Sammy. You've heard that all your life, I'll bet, huh? And Edward Byers. Stand up, please. You all look good. We all look good. We remember the ceremonies. Oh, great. It's a great honor. There's no greater. I tried for myself. I've tried numerous times to get one by myself. I keep getting shut down. They say, you can't put, sir. Bad protocol. Very bad. I would say the worst. But I'm only kidding. You don't have to say I'm only kidding. Otherwise, the press will come out with it, which they actually did once. Donald Trump wants a Congressional Medal of Honor, but he's been shut down. But now you are brave, amazing people. And I want to thank you all. In 1941, Roddy Edmonds of Knoxville, Tennessee, enlisted in the U.S. Army and soon rose to one of the youngest master sergeants in the military. In 1944, he sailed to Europe to fight in World War II, and he was so enthusiastic and young and full of vim and vigor. Roddy soon found himself on the front lines of the Battle of the Bulge. That was a big one, massively outnumbered by enemy forces. His 1,200 soldier unit fought valiantly until they were completely overrun. The force was massive on the other side, many times the number. After a 4-day death march, one that was covered very well by the history books, through bitter cold, they were put into a German POW camp. Roddy was the top-ranking infantryman in the camp. He was number 1, meaning he was responsible for the lives of his fellow service members. On July 26, 1945, a Nazi SS officer issued an order over the camp loudspeaker, loud and strong. He said that only American Jews were to show up to roll call following this morning. He added, all who disobey this order will be shot immediately. There were more than 200 Jewish American soldiers in the camp, and Roddy knew their separation from the group would mean certain death. So that night he summoned his team and devised a plan. The next morning, all 1,200 American men fell in line together, shoulder to shoulder. Enraged, the Nazi commandant rushed forward, drew his Luger pistol, and pressed the barrel between Sergeant Edmonds' eyes. He barked at Roddy. They cannot all be Jews, he screamed loud and again, and staring straight back into the raging face of evil. Sergeant Edmonds replied fearlessly, we are all Jews here. The Nazi officer lowered his weapon and the soldiers erupted in cheers. With total disregard for his own life, Roddy had saved over 200 of his fellow service members. Their camp was liberated 2 months later. We're honored to be joined today by Roddy's son, Chris. Please stand up as Thank you, Chris. Today, your father gets the honor he so courageously earned. And really amazing, right? It's an amazing story. Congratulations to the family of Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds. The next two we recognize today served in the 1st Battalion, 28th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Infantry Division, better known as Big Red 1. Do you know about that, Pete? Right? Command Sergeant Major Terry Richardson, we are honored to have you with us. On September 12, 1968, 102 brave men of Terry's Alpha Company were asked with securing Hill 222 deep behind the enemy's line in Vietnam. They didn't know it at the time, had no idea, but the area was totally infested with nearly 300 enemy bunkers and many, many enemy soldiers, far outnumbering them by at least 4, 5, even 6 to 1. As Terry led Lima platoon up Hill 222, the enemy launched an ambitious and violent attack, unleashing a withering fire of machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades. Just didn't stop, just kept coming. Pinned down in hell on earth, Terry summoned unimaginable courage. 3 times he exposed himself to enemy fire to rescue severely wounded comrades, and 3 times he dragged them back to the group. Terry soon realized that the 82 remaining men had one chance of survival. That was air support. Acting without regard of his own life, he grabbed a radio and charged up Hill 222 alone. He needed to be there. It was the only place you'd get reception. He withstood a storm of enemy bullets, eventually reaching the top, where he spent the next 8 hours calling in tactical strikes, completely exposed. An hour in, an enemy sniper shot rang out and the bullet tore through his right leg violently. He was in bad shape, but Terry disregarded that and pushed through. And after 7 more hours of calling in American fire from above, the enemy retreated. Later that day, his team found him with both eardrums totally ruptured and a mangled right leg and foot, but still barely living, but living nevertheless. Due to Terry's actions above and beyond the call of duty, 82 men, Alpha Company, survived this battle, including 2 in this room, Norm Meyer and Dave Himmer. Where are you? Can you want to stand up, Norm and Dave? Where's Norm and Dave? That's pretty cool. Pretty good. And that story is 100% correct, isn't it? Huh? See, pretty. It's how much have you paid him over the years? Have you said take everything we have? We wouldn't be here, right? That's great. That's a great story, Terry. Today you enter the ranks of the bravest warriors ever to stride the face of the earth. Please stand up, please. Thank you. That's great, Terry. That's a great, brave man. I met him back there. He said, he's central casting. Look at him. He looks great. He looks great. You feel like fighting? We could I think we could take him today. What do you think, Pete? We'll make a little deal with him, as you are a brave man. Finally, we honor one more American soldier, a fallen warrior of wars, and really terror. Staff Sergeant Michael Ollis, born in Staten Island. Michael grew up seeing the World Trade Center across the bay. I know Staten Island so well. The people in Staten Island are amazing. After 9/11, Michael enlisted in the Army, and by 24 years old, he was locked in. He loved it. He wanted it so badly. He was a squad leader serving in Afghanistan with the 2nd Battalion, 22nd Infantry Regiment, 1st Brigade Combat Team of the legendary 10th Mountain Division. On August 28th, 2013, terrorists detonated a 400-pound car bomb on the east wall of the forward operating base, Ghanzi, ripping open a 60-foot wide breach into a compound that housed NATO coalition forces, a lot of them. 10 Taliban fighters wearing suicide vests swarmed through. From across the compound, Michael saw the pillar of white smoke rising and ran to join the fight, rushing without his gear, wearing almost no gear, no Kevlar helmet, no body armor, just one magazine in his rifle. Along the way, he encountered a Polish soldier, and together they advanced under heavy fire, very, very heavy fire. At one point, shrapnel ripped through the Polish soldier's legs, rendering him unable to walk, very, very severely hurt. In that chaos of gunfire, explosions, and charred human remains, a terrorist insurgent appeared, rounding a corner with his suicide vest, fully armed, and you could see it. It was going to happen. He charged the wounded Polish soldier without hesitation. Michael raised his gun and forced himself between the insurgent and the man he just met, shielding him with his own body. He knew it was going to happen. He shielded him with his own body. You know, bravery's amazing. You never really know who's brave, who's not, until they're really tested. We think some people are brave, Pete, and they're not. We think others aren't, and they are. You never know. But he was tested. That's called the ultimate test, right? And at perhaps his final heartbeat, Michael fired his weapon, and the terrorist detonated his vest simultaneously. Staff Sergeant Ollis was killed just weeks before his 25th birthday, and nobody was any more brave than that. In his final act on earth, Michael absorbed the blast, sparing the life of that Polish warrior, who we are grateful to have in the room with us today, Second Lieutenant Carol Sierpika. Carol Sierpika. Where are you, Carol? Hey. Would you like to come up? Please. Please. I'd love to have you come up. Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, Minister of War, I'm Minister Polish of National Defense, distinguished guests, everyone gathered here today, dear my Basia, Michael, and Jacob, especially dear Linda and Robert, and the entire Ollis family. What do you have that you did not receive? This is how I would like to begin these few words, to speak to you all here. In this special place and on occasion of this incredibly important ceremony, one that is significant for many, but truly especially exceptional for me, is a particular privilege and a great honor. Above all, however, it is my commitment. It is a part of my new mission, which began 13 years ago. A soldier is not something you are from time to time. It is who you are forever. It is just like you are not a mother, a father, a sister, and brother, or as only for a moment. These are not roles given to us for a while. They are a great gift, but also a great lifelong commitment. Yes, today my commitment and my greatest gift is to cultivate the memory of true, heroic act of courage that I witnessed performed by your beloved son, Michael. Please forgive me if my words have not fully captured what I truly feel today. However, sometimes words are simply not enough. I'm deeply moved, happy, and grateful to God for my service, for my parents, for my family, for my beloved homeland, Poland, for my second family from Staten Island, and for my second homeland, America. God bless you all. Michael, thank you for your service, and I will see you in our heavenly homeland. Thank you for your service. Thank you so much.
And Carol is joined by his wife and their two wonderful sons, Jacob and Michael. Michael is named after the American hero who saved his father's life. So stand up, Michael. Let me see. Wow. That's great. We're also pleased to be joined by several members of the Polish government, including representatives of the president, who I think is a fantastic man, by the way. I must be honest with you. I endorsed him and he won, and he came from behind. He won, and he was the biggest story in Europe. And he's going to be a great president. He already is. But as well as Poland's Minister of Defense, to honor the blood and sacrifice that has helped seal the Polish-American bond. We have a great bond. We have a great relationship with your country. And I just want to thank you to Michael's parents, Bob and Linda. Your son's selflessness in the face of real evil reminds us of the courage that keeps our country free. And I just said the genetics in that family are very strong, right? I said that before. All three families, I said, good. I see some of the young ones today. And I said, you have good genes. They were asking me, what does that mean? I said, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out. But you have the best genes you can have, actually. So thank you for giving America your beloved son. And now I would like to ask the military aide to come forward and read the citations, and then we will do the honors. Thank you all very much. This is a tremendous honor for me to be here. Thank you. Please, military aide.
Chris Edmonds, accepting on behalf of his father, Master Sergeant Roderick W. Edmonds. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3, 1863, has posthumously awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Master Sergeant Roderick W. Edmonds, United States Army. Master Sergeant Roderick W. Edmonds distinguished himself by acts of gallantry above and beyond the call of duty from January 27, 1945 to March 30, 1945 as a prisoner of war in Germany. Upon arrival at Stalag 9A in Zietenhain, Germany, on the evening of January 26, 1945, the Germans announced that only Jewish American prisoners would fall out for roll call the following morning at the threat of execution. Master Sergeant Edmonds directed his senior leaders to have all 1,200 American prisoners present themselves for roll call. The Nazi commandant became incredulous after realizing that so many Americans were standing in formation. The commandant removed his pistol, pressed it hard against Master Sergeant Edmonds' forehead between his eyes, and demanded that he order all Jewish American prisoners to step forward or he would be shot. Master Sergeant Edmonds fearlessly held his ground, refusing to concede. The commandant lowered his weapon without further attempts to segregate the Jewish American prisoners. Several weeks later, in March 1945, the Germans ordered all prisoners to assemble outside the barracks for evacuation. Master Sergeant Edmonds ordered all American prisoners to form in front of the barracks, and when the enemy transports arrived, they would break ranks and rush back to the barracks. Master Sergeant Edmonds gallantly led these prisoners in a relentless pursuit of opposition and resistance, forcing the Germans to abandon the camp, leaving the 1,200 American prisoners behind. Master Sergeant Edmonds' conspicuous gallantry above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, in the United States Army. Command Sergeant Major Terry P. Richardson. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Staff Sergeant Terry P. Richardson, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Terry P. Richardson distinguished himself by acts of gallantry above and beyond the call of duty on September 14, 1968, in the vicinity of Loc Ninh, Republic of Vietnam. On this date, his company was tasked with the mission of securing Hill 222 in hostile and enemy territory near the Cambodian border. Staff Sergeant Richardson directed one of his squads to be the point element leading the way. Shortly after the assault began, 3 of the squad members became severely wounded and pinned down between 3 enemy machine gun bunkers. Staff Sergeant Richardson advanced forward under heavy enemy fire and recovered his wounded soldiers between heavy machine gun fire. By the time he was able to make it back to join his unit, his entire company had been completely surrounded by the enemy. Staff Sergeant Richardson recognized that the only way to keep his company from being overrun was with accurate tactical airstrikes. Staff Sergeant Richardson advanced to the top of Hill 222 under heavy enemy fire for better sight lines to direct the tactical airstrikes. He began to direct the tactical airstrikes and shortly thereafter became wounded by an enemy sniper. Staff Sergeant Richardson's continued directing the tactical airstrikes for 7 more hours before the enemy broke contact. 6 soldiers from his platoon found him still alive. Staff Sergeant Richardson declined medical evaluation for his gunshot wound and requested that he be allowed to stay to lead his soldiers. Altogether, his actions directly resulted in 85 lives being spared on that fateful day. Staff Sergeant Richardson's conspicuous gallantry and extraordinary heroism at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army.
That's awesome.
Robert and Linda Ollis, accepting on behalf of their son, Staff Sergeant Michael H. Ollis. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3rd, 1863, has posthumously awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Staff Sergeant Michael H. Ollis, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Michael H. Ollis distinguished himself by acts of gallantry above and beyond the call of duty on 28 August 2013 in Afghanistan. On this date, a complex enemy attack involving multiple vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, suicide vests, indirect fire, and small arms fire was launched against Forward Operating Base Hanzi. Staff Sergeant Ollis ordered his fellow soldiers to move to bunkers to shield themselves from enemy fire. After accounting for his soldiers, he moved toward the enemy force that had penetrated the perimeter of the Forward Operating Base. Staff Sergeant Ollis located a coalition forces officer, and together they moved toward the point of attack, armed with only their rifles. Upon reaching the attack point, they linked up with other friendly forces and began a coordinated effort to repulse the enemy. While under continuous fire, Staff Sergeant Ollis moved from position to position, engaging the enemy with accurate and effective fire. While fighting along the perimeter, an insurgent came around the corner. Staff Sergeant Ollis fired on the insurgent and incapacitated him, but as he approached the downed insurgent, the insurgent's suicide vest detonated and mortally wounded him. Staff Sergeant Ollis's exceptional courage and complete disregard for personal safety were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon him, his unit in the United States Army.
Okay, Watermelon. See you later. Fox Motor, you're back. You guys, this is a beautiful moment. Okay. I think that's.
Ladies and gentlemen, please bow with me as we give the benediction. Eternal God, our unfailing light in every darkness, the rock on which we stand, as we depart this place of honor, may the courage of these heroes be our example, righteousness our choice, and hope in you our guiding light. We especially ask for your protection over our military service members who are protectors of our nation at this very moment. And Heavenly Father, grant us the will to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before you. In your holy name we pray. This we'll defend. Amen.
Some in chat. Okay. No, that's not what I want. So, what do you guys think about that? There's a lot that's going on. God save Iran. God save Iran. Some of you, it's not even worth me reading the chat sometimes. It's just not. All right.
Well, good morning. We just finished an update with Admiral Brad Cooper, the CENTCOM commander, across the CENTCOM AOR, our leadership and troops, as you would expect, doing a fantastic job. 2 days ago, under the direction and direct orders of President Donald J. Trump, the Department of War launched Operation Epic Fury, the most lethal, most complex, and most precise aerial operation in history. For 47 long years, the expansionist and Islamist regime in Tehran has waged a savage, one-sided war against America. They didn't always declare it openly, except for their constant chants of death to America. They did it through the blood of our people. Car bombs in Beirut, rocket attacks on our ships, murders at our embassies, roadside bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan, funded and armed by Iranian Quds Force and IRGC killers. My generation of veterans carry the names of brothers who never came home. Brothers butchered by Iranian-backed roadside bombs and well-armed militias, thousands of our own. We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it. Their war on Americans has become our retribution against their Ayatollah and his death cult. It took the 47th president, a fighter who always puts America first, to finally draw the line after 47 years of Iranian belligerence. He reminded the world, as he has time and time again, being an American means something unbreakable. If you kill Americans, if you threaten Americans anywhere on earth, we will hunt you down without apology and without hesitation, and we will kill you. President Trump has also been very consistent. Crazy regimes like Iran, hell-bent on prophetic Islamist delusions, cannot have nuclear weapons. It's common sense. Many have said it, but it takes guts to actually enforce it, and our president has guts. Iran's stubborn and self-evident nuclear pursuits, their targeting of global shipping lanes, and their swelling arsenal of ballistic missiles and killer drones are no longer tolerable risks. Iran was building powerful missiles and drones to create a conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Let me say that again. A conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Our bases, our people, our allies, all in their crosshairs. Iran had a conventional gun to our head as they tried to lie their way to a nuclear bomb. It almost worked under Obama and his terrible deal, but not under this president. Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel. This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it. Today, in their desperation, the enemy is unmasked as Iranian missiles and drones rain down indiscriminately on the hotels, airports, apartments, and other civilian targets of their neighbors. Cowardly terrorist tactics from a regime that for decades has trafficked in cowardly terrorist tactics, lies, death, and destruction to this day. The Iranian leadership has built nothing except proxies and missiles and drones and deeply buried nuclear factories and facilities. Peaceful nuclear ambitions do not need to be buried underneath mountains. Last June, Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated their nuclear program to rubble. Afterward, we told them plainly, that's it, now make a deal. They arrogantly refused. We said, rebuild it and we'll stop you again, this time far worse. Well, President Trump, Secretary Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, they bent over backwards for real diplomacy, offering pathway after pathway to peace. I watched it. I was there. They tried over and over and over again, earnest attempts at peace. The former regime had every chance to make a peaceful and sensible deal. But Tehran was not negotiating. They were stalling, buying time to reload their missile stockpiles and restart their nuclear ambitions. Their goal, hold us hostage, threatening to strike our forces. Well, President Trump doesn't play those games. And as Secretary Rubio said after the Maduro raid, if you don't know, now you know. President Trump puts America and Americans first. He doesn't hesitate, and neither do our troops. The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser focused destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. We're hitting them surgically, overwhelmingly, and unapologetically. With every passing day, our capabilities get stronger and Iran's get weaker. We set the terms of this war from start to finish. Our ambitions are not utopian. They are realistic, scoped to our interests and the defense of our people and our allies. Speaking of people, we hope the Iranian people take advantage of this incredible opportunity. President Trump has been clear, now is your time. To Iranian security forces, choose wisely. President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes. Israel has clear missions as well, for which we are grateful. Capable partners, as we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force. America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history. B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles, and of course, classified effects. All on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives. As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell, and always will be. A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them taken too soon by Iranian radicals. Before I turn it over to General Kane for the operational update, let me speak straight to you, the Joint Force, our warriors on the front lines. This is your moment. This is the generational turning point America has waited for since 1979, and since the rudderless wars of hubris, my generation, our generation, endured. Don't listen to the noise. Just stay focused. Our commander-in-chief is steady at the wheel. We face a determined enemy, but you are better. But we must prove it every single day. History doesn't care if we're tired, if we're scared, or if the fight feels big. It demands warriors who rise anyway. Peace through strength, the warrior ethos, lethality, unity of purpose, those are not slogans. They're the beating heart of what it means to wear the uniform, that uniform. You think clearly under fire, you act decisively in chaos, you uphold the Constitution, and you uphold our country without hesitation. We are not defenders anymore. We are warriors, trained to kill the enemy and break their will. History is watching. Be the force you swore an oath to be: focused, disciplined, lethal, and unbreakable. We will finish this on America First conditions of President Trump's choosing. Nobody else's, as it should be. And know this above all, President Trump and I have your back always. Through fire, through criticism, through fake news, through everything. We unleash you because you are the best, most powerful, most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. May Almighty God watch over you and his providential arms of protection extend over you. Godspeed, warriors, and keep going. General Kane, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, everyone. The purpose of my portion of the briefing today is to update you and the American people on the actions taken thus far. The briefing will discuss the preparation, the planning, setting the force, the early operations, and how we're assessing the progress thus far. So let's get started. On Saturday, 28 February, at 01:15 Eastern Standard Time, 9:45 a.m. local Tehran time, on the orders of the President of the United States, U.S. Central Command, under the command of United States Navy Admiral Brad Cooper, commenced Operation Epic Fury. As I said, I'm going to walk you through the initial phases of the operation. But first, I want to express my deep condolences and the condolences of the Joint Force to the Department of War personnel killed and wounded in actions thus far. As the Secretary said, they're heroes and represent the best of our nation has to offer. They're true examples of what selfless service means. Our deepest and heartfelt condolences are with their families, their friends, and their units. We grieve with you and we will never forget you. Additionally, I stand here before you today grateful for each service member, planner, logistician, operator across our joint force, for our Department of War civilians, our intelligence community teammates, our interagency teammates who continue to stand in harm's way alongside us. I am proud of all of you as you take the fight to the enemy, and we are the best in the world at integrating, period. I want to extend my personal gratitude to the dedicated commanders and senior enlisted leaders and the enlisted members of the Joint Force who are fighting this fight across the CENTCOM AOR. In addition to Admiral Cooper and Fleet Master Chief Compton, I want to highlight a few today. U.S. Army Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Pat Frank, who along with his team are fighting the counter-missile and counter-drone fight. United States Navy Central Command Commander Vice Admiral Kurt Renshaw and his team, who are engaged with the Iranian Navy and projecting American naval combat power from the seas. And United States Air Force Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Derek France and his leadership team, who are crushing Iranian targets from the air. I want to highlight the support to the CENTCOM fight from other combatant commands who are directly involved with this effort, to include U.S. Spacecom, U.S. Cybercom, and U.S. UCOM. I also want to specifically call out United States Transportation Command and U.S. STRATCOM for their contributions to this fight. We cannot project American combat power at the time and place of our choosing without both. And finally, I want to express how deeply thankful I am for the continued service and sacrifice of the entire Joint Force and their families. Their unwavering commitment and dedication are the cornerstones of this effort. So let me start with a few details. First, to be clear, as the Secretary said, this is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses. But as the Secretary said, this is major combat operations. So let me talk about the preparation and the planning. On February 28th, the full strength of America's armed forces came together in a unified purpose against a capable and determined adversary. The United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, and our reserve components integrated across our combatant commands and began coordinated operations with the Israeli armed forces of an unprecedented scale. As the Secretary laid out, our military objectives are clear. Our mission is to protect and defend ourselves, and together with our regional partners, prevent Iran from the ability to project power outside of its borders, and be ready for follow-on actions as appropriate. Across every domain, land, air, sea, cyber, the U.S. Joint Force delivered synchronized and layered effects designed to disrupt, degrade, deny, and destroy Iran's ability to conduct and sustain combat operations. On the U.S. side, this marked the culmination of months and in some cases years of deliberate planning and refinement against this particular target set. From precision strikes against key military infrastructure to persistent intelligence and targeting integration to the close coordination of the components across vast distances, this operation again demonstrated America's reach, readiness, and professionalism, and that of our joint united force. It was historic not only in the operational scope, but in the level of joint integration displayed across every element of the joint force. And as I said earlier, this work is just beginning and will continue. So now to talk a little bit about setting the force and setting the theater. On the order of the Secretary of War over the last 30 days to reinforce deterrence and provide the President with credible options should action be required, the Joint Force began to systematically reposition assets and personnel across the region. These movements ensured that U.S. forces remained postured, protected, and ready to respond decisively for any emerging threat. This deployment included thousands of service members from all branches, hundreds of advanced fourth and fifth generation fighters, dozens of refueling tankers, the Lincoln and Ford Carrier Strike Group and their embarked air wings, sustained flow of munitions, fuel, supplies, all supported with command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance network. And the flow of forces continues today. In fact, Admiral Cooper will receive additional forces even today. This rapid buildup of forces demonstrated the joint forces' ability to adapt and project power at the time and place of our nation's choosing. I want to highlight a couple specific cases for you. The Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, which many of you know was down in the Western Hemisphere, redeployed across the Atlantic to set the theater. The ship, her crew, their families, and the entire strike group took a deep breath, and as they always do, began planning to conduct combat operations. The integrated Reserve and National Guard forces have continued to demonstrate the value of America's reserve forces, including the Wisconsin Army National Guard operating in Kuwait and Iraq, and Air National Guard units from a variety of states to include Vermont and Virginia. In the case of the Vermont Air National Guard and the 158th Fighter Wing, they were mobilized for Operation Absolute Resolve and then were tasked to take their F-35As across the Atlantic instead of going home to be prepared to support this operation. The same is with our Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve Command tanker and mobility forces who stepped right out of their civilian jobs to deploy and to protect the region. Lastly, I want to highlight the unsung heroes of warfare, our American Logistics and Sustainment Force, those who quietly work every day behind the scenes to project and sustain America's combat power. Our leaders from World War II were right when they said professionals do logistics. As regional tensions rose, the Joint Force elevated our force protection measures on the order of the Secretary and repositioned discreetly civilians and non-essential personnel designed to ensure the safety and security of our joint force. By the time operations began, only essential forces remained on our bases and in theater, all ready, capable to respond. So now let me move to H hour. At 3:38 p.m. on Friday, February 27th, the United States Central Command, through the Secretary of War, received the final go order from President Trump. The president directed, and I quote, "Operation Epic Fury is approved. No aborts. Good luck," close quote. In the region, every element of the joint force made their final preparations. Air defense batteries readied themselves, checking their systems to respond to Iranian attacks. Pilots and crews rehearsed their strike packages for the final time. Air crews began loading their final weapons. and 2 carrier strike groups began to move towards their launching points. Across the globe, our operations centers came alive in Tampa, Florida, here at the Pentagon, and of course, forward in the Central Command AOR. As always, operational security was paramount as we sought to maintain and sustain the element of surprise. This operation was highly classified so that at H hour, the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence of action. The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. At H hour, the beginning of major combat operations, 01:15 local Eastern Daylight Time, 9:45 local AM Tehran time, as dawn crept up across the Central Command AOR, the skies surged to life. More than 100 aircraft launched from land, sea, fighters, tankers, airborne early warning, electronic attack, bombers from the States, and unmanned platforms, forming a single synchronized wave. This was a daylight strike based on a trigger event conducted by the Israeli Defense Forces, enabled by the U.S. intelligence community. The first shooters at sea were Tomahawks unleashed by the United States Navy, closed in on Iranian naval forces, and began to conduct strikes across the southern flank in Iran. On the ground, forces fired precision standoff weapons, measured, deliberate, precise, and lethal. This was a massive, overwhelming attack across all domains of warfare, striking more than 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. We are now roughly 57 hours into the operation. In the initial phase, CENTCOM's focus was systematic targeting of Iranians' command and control infrastructure, naval forces, ballistic missile sites, and intelligence infrastructure designed to daze and confuse them. Coordinated space and cyber operations effectively disrupted communications and sensor networks across the area of responsibility, leaving the adversary without the ability to see, coordinate, or respond effectively. The combined impact of these strikes, swift, precise, and overwhelming, has resulted in the establishment of local air superiority. This air superiority will not only enhance the protection of our forces, but also allow them to continue the work over Iran. Over the course of the last 2 days, the Joint Force has launched hundreds of missions from land and sea and delivered tens of thousands of pieces of ordnance. The effort continues to scale. This included American B-2 bombers, which again, similar to Midnight Hammer, flew a 37-hour round-trip sortie from the continental United States, dropping precision, penetrating munitions on Iranian underground facilities across the southern flank and slightly deeper. Additionally, Israel has separately executed hundreds of sorties against hundreds of targets. Beyond Air Force and Navy aircraft strike packages, coordinated salvos of precision standoff weapons from across the region have neutralized hundreds of pre-planned targets. As I mentioned earlier, in support of these kinetic operations, U.S. Cybercom and Spacecom have continuously layered effects to disrupt, disorient, and confuse the enemy. I will note that this operation had several combat firsts, which I'll allow at some point in the future Admiral Cooper to talk about since he owns the AOR. While we've prosecuted a relentless offensive campaign, our defense has been equally important. Across the theater, operations have remained steady and disciplined. Once again, our integrated air and missile defense network is performing exactly as it's intended. U.S. Patriot and THAAD batteries, along with ballistic missile defense capable Navy destroyers, continue to coordinate and execute intercepts with precision and consistency. I wish that every American could hear the voice communications like I have as these joint operations centers remain calm, focused, and cool while executing under fire over and over.
Thank you for the super sticker. I'm not sure what Charlie Kirk has to do with this right now, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Again. Collectively, these systems have intercepted hundreds of ballistic missiles targeting U.S. forces, our partners, and regional stability. The threat from one-way attack UAVs has remained persistent. Our systems have proven effective in countering these platforms, engaging targets rapidly. Each intercept represents hundreds of hours of training, readiness, and technology all coming together to work as designed. We will remain vigilant in the counter UAV fight. And the defense of the region is not ours alone. As the threat grew, our partners surged in beside us. Air defense batteries in Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia joined the fight, proof positive that years of training, trust, and hard-earned integration pay off. I am aware of the loss of 3 U.S. Air Force F-15Es overnight in the region. I am grateful for the safety of the crews, and we know that this was not from hostile enemy fire. As this matters under investigation, I'll not comment further on this. Let me close. Operations will remain active across the theater and across the globe. The U.S. forces are postured not only to maintain pressure, but to respond and adapt as required. Operation Epic Fury stands as a reminder of what the United States military uniquely delivers: the ability to project power on a global scale with speed, surprise, precision, and overwhelming force when and where our nation requires it. What we've demonstrated over the past several days reflects years of investment in readiness, joint integration, and professionalism of the joint force. As major combat operations continue across CENTCOM, we remain engaged globally. America's joint force retains the credibility, capacity, and flexibility to respond to any contingency anywhere in the world at any time. To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail. To the American people, your joint force remains steady, frosty, calm, and focused. Your service members are trained, disciplined, and determined. We understand the risks of this mission and the weight of the responsibility that we carry. We also recognize that our families also shoulder the burden at home. You are a part of this too. I am proud today, as I am every day, to stand as a member of America's joint force. There is no mission too complex, no distance too great, and no adversary too determined for the men and women who wear our nation's uniform. We mourn our fallen, we honor their families, and we continue our mission with focus, unity, and strength. And now I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right here. Go ahead.
Thank you for your time. What percentage of Iranian long strike capabilities are still in the fight? And what is our exit strategy here, and when will it be deployed?
Well, they have long-range strike capabilities, which we are hyper-focused on. The brief we got just this morning, Admiral Cooper knows exactly and precisely what kind of threat matrix he's looking at, the way they might change their techniques and how we adapt to that. So we're making sure the theater commander has absolutely everything he needs. I mean, one of the things the chairman mentioned is for months and months, even before we built up, we ensured that we had maximum defensive capabilities in theater to allow the president the decision space in the future. So even before this build up in the last 30 days, we discreetly brought defensive assets in to make sure, understanding that there are Iranian capabilities. As far as time frame, I would never hang a time frame from our perspective. The commander-in-chief sets the op tempo and terms of this fight. As I said, it's on his terms. And we'll make sure that Admiral Cooper and his team have everything they need, not just to defend. I mean, the best defense is good offense. And so we're aggressively pushing into that airspace over that southern flank to ensure that we control it and we destroy anything that moves that would attempt to shoot us. Think of it as shooting the archer instead of the arrows. That's where we want to be. And we have the kind of exquisite intelligence to get over the top, find that and destroy it. It won't happen overnight. This is a big battle space with a lot of capabilities. That's part of the reason why it's such a threat to us. That's why I talk about conventional umbrella to blackmail nuclear ambitions. They were building up this conventional arsenal in order to ensure that no one would ever block them from their ability to get nuclear weapons. So we're very clear-eyed about the nature of this Iranian threat, and we're going to get after it. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the question. The only thing I'll add is that unlike an operation, a single operation like Midnight Hammer or Absolute Resolve, it'll take some time for us to conduct battle damage assessment, and the targeting cycle that CENTCOM will run will take those things into effect. Admiral Cooper will adjust his plan and fires accordingly to ensure that we're attriting that. He's focused on long-range strike capability coming out of the enemy, and that's a key and essential part of it.
The capabilities that still exist from the enemy front.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say we're still doing BDA. Normally we'd be able to see a singular thing and we'd assess pretty quickly. He's doing offense and assessment simultaneously, so it'll take longer for us to assess than it would in a single operation.
Secretary Hegseth, thank you. Reagan Reese with the Daily Caller. 2 questions for you. The president said yesterday in his video message that we will leave Iran when we complete all of our objectives. What are our objectives? And can you share more information on how the soldiers who were killed were killed?
Well, I laid out the objectives, as did the chairman. They're completely nested. I mean, Iran has an ability to project power against us and our allies in ways that we can't tolerate. So whether that's ballistic missiles and drones, so offensive capabilities, effectively their navy, which would attempt to set other terms and impose different costs, drone capabilities, which we laid out there. And ultimately, though, this tying it back to Midnight Hammer, the president has been willing to make a deal. You can't have a nuclear bomb. Radical Islamists can't have a nuclear bomb that they wield against the world. He gave them every single opportunity. Then we precisely took it away. And even then, after that, they didn't have that. They didn't come to the table with a willingness to give it away. So ultimately, those nuclear ambitions, which never ceased, are something that had to be addressed as well. So that's a discrete sense of what's being addressed here to ensure that they can't use that conventional umbrella to continue a pursuit of nuclear ambitions. And then as it pertains to the U.S. casualties, that particular incident was, you have air defenses and the lot's coming in and you hit most of it. And we absolutely do. We have incredible air defenders. Every once in a while, you might have one, unfortunately, we call it a squirter that makes its way through. And in that particular case, it happened to hit a tactical operations center that was fortified, but these are powerful weapons. So we certainly will do, as I said, moments like that as we remember them and we take care of them and take care of their families, only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we do this properly.
Thank you.
Yep. Right here.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. I had 2 questions for you. First, are there currently any American boots on the ground in Iran?
No, but we're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do. I think it's one of those fallacies for a long time that this department or presidents or others should tell the American people this, and our enemies, by the way, here's exactly what we'll do. Here's exactly how long we'll go. Here's exactly how far we'll go. Here's what we're willing to do and not do. It's foolishness. And so President Trump ensures that our enemies understand we'll go as far as we need to go to advance American interests. But we're not dumb about it. You don't have to roll 200,000 people in there and stay for 20 years. We've proven that you can achieve objectives that advance American interests without being foolish about it. Now, will we be bold about it? Are we willing to be decisive about it? Do we put months and months of planning into what kind of effects we want to achieve? Absolutely. But going forward, why in the world would we tell you, the enemy, anybody, what we will or will not do in pursuit of an objective? We fight to win. We fight to achieve the objectives the President of the United States has laid out, and we will do so unapologetically. Thank
Is there
you.
any significance to Israel carrying out the strike to kill the Ayatollah? And I wanted to know, what was your immediate reaction to finding out about his killing?
I think Israel did a great job in the conduct of that operation.
President Trump put a 4-week
you go, right
timeline on
here.
it. Are you
Please.
saying that's wrong?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned during the briefing, General Kane, that there would be additional troops sent to the region. Could you say how many troops currently are involved in this operation and how many additional troops are planned to go in this next phase?
I don't want to talk specifics because that would tip the enemy off. We have more tactical aviation flowing into theater just based on the time it took to get it out there. I think we're just about where we want to be in terms of total combat capacity and total combat power for Admiral Cooper. One of the things, though, that a commander, he'll consistently assess the trajectory of the campaign. Is he on or off trajectory? And then make an ask of the joint force, which will then develop options for consideration by the secretary and the president to either increase or in some cases decrease the amount of combat capability that we have over there.
I heard the question about 4 weeks. It's the typical NBC sort of gotcha type question. President Trump has all the latitude in the world to talk about how long it may or may not take. 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. It could move up, it could move back. We're going to execute at his command the objectives we've set out to achieve. And what he has shown an ability to do that other presidents can't quite seem to have the aperture to do. Well, I mean, Joe Biden didn't even know what he was doing, is to look for opportunities and off-ramps and escalations for the United States that creates new opportunities to execute what we need on our own timeline. So you can play games about 4 weeks, 5 weeks. He has all the latitude, and I'm glad he does, because there's no better communicator than our president expressing those things.
Daily Mail.
I've been in meetings with the president for the last 2.5 days. We know exactly where his headspace is, and he will communicate as he should exactly what he would like, and we will follow those orders. And I think everything he said on that is right down the middle.
Chairman, did you have
Absolutely.
evidence
Yes, right
of
there. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Secretary. I left my hometown of Sakis in Iranian Kurdistan in 1996. Can you promise that I will be able to return home safely this year? And I have a following question too, please.
Well, I appreciate the question. I'm not here to place guarantees on that, but I think the message the president has given has been clear to the people of Iran. This is your moment. The world was seized by these crowds and then seized by the reality of this regime killing tens of thousands of innocent protesters. So we saw the nature of the regime yet again exposed. We saw many of the Iranian people seek a change there. This is their moment to take advantage of it for sure.
Secretary, you served in Iraq and know that no American soldiers were killed in Kurdistan. The Kurdish people are very pro-American. Will you continue protect Kurdistan and Peshmerga as loyal ally of the United States? Why I'm asking this question? Because now Kurdistan is under attack by Iranian drones and by proxies in Iraq and on the region.
I think I can speak to allies generally in the region who we've been in constant communication with. We have been standing shoulder to shoulder with them, and we appreciate their capabilities. Absolutely. Yes, right here.
Hi, thank you. Cameron Arkin with the Daily Wire. My question is about some of the domestic threats, if any, regarding this right now. Have there been any concerns about Iranian sleeper cells and kind of what has the Trump administration been doing to kind of monitor these
All
threats?
across the interagency, in full coordination. Of course, we're paying attention to any potentialities there. This is a former regime, that seeks to export that ideology and try to sow terror. We're ready for that. We've seen these types of folks before, and the American people can rest assured that we're vigilant on that. Right here.
Secretary, thank you. Kind of a follow-up on that last question. There was just this, what appears to be a terrorist attack in Austin yesterday. How does that change the operation at all? What effect does that have? And
It doesn't change the operation at all, and I know the authorities are executing exactly the way they should.
Secretary Higseth, and one for Chairman Kane as well. I understand, to your point here, that you don't want to broadcast everything for our adversaries to hear, but the American people also want to know what they're sending their men and women to war for. Is there a concern of this spiraling into a longer war? And then one for the chairman when you're done.
Did you not hear my remarks? I mean, we're ensuring the mission gets accomplished, but we are very clear-eyed, as the president has been, unlike other presidents, about the foolish policies of the past that recklessly pulled us in to things that were not tethered to actual clear objectives. So we know We have plans, we have generals, we have chairmen, we have commanders, CENTCOM commanders, Admiral Cooper, who's executing very deliberately to ensure outcomes that I laid out are accomplished. But we would never in front of a press pool lay out how long that may take. The mission for our warfighters, which is what matters to us, is very, very clear. And they're executing it right now violently.
And just for the chairman quickly, I have one for the chairman. You said this is not a one-night operation. It will take time to achieve the goals. What would be the goal line here for you?
I think the Secretary laid out the military objectives, and that's what we execute against is the military objectives.
Last one right here.
Uranium is. Thank you, sir. As you've said, there are a large amount of U.S. service members that are in harm's way right now. What is your prayer for them?
First of all, my prayer for them is that I do pray for them. My wife prays for them, our family prays for them, our cabinet prays for them. None of this is done on a whim. Having been in their boots, having been in their shoes, having been in their flight suits, I know we think about them with every decision that we make and every recommendation that we make to the President of the United States. Those recommendations are made prayerfully. And when I pray every day for them and for this mission, I pray simply for the biblical wisdom to see what is right and the courage to do it. It's going to take courage to follow through on this. There's going to be a lot of noise, and we pray for that, and we hope all of you do as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Going to strike first.
Okay, you guys, are we still friends? That was a lot. Thank you, 23B Brad. Let me see. Let me give you guys the latest updates. I usually don't give you guys, well, never mind.
Breaking news, a source telling Fox's Jennifer Griffin that the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia was hit by 2 drones. A third is apparently en route and could strike at any moment. And the embassy is now issuing a shelter in place for citizens in Saudi Arabia as the U.S. government has put all citizens in the region on high alert and urged those in 14 different countries in the region to leave immediately. And more than ever, I mean, since really 9/11, the U.S. is on high alert for any attacks here on the homeland. The FBI is investigating that shooting in Texas and Austin for possible terror connections, where the 53-year-old Nigada Giagni was wearing a sweatshirt that said property of Allah, that might be a clue, and a t-shirt with the Iranian flag on it. He opened fire outside a bar in Austin this weekend, killing 2 and injuring 14. He's a naturalized citizen from Senegal. He was shot and killed by police, and they're still really trying to secure the motive for this. Meanwhile, there's a growing fear tonight about sleeper cells in the U.S.
Of course, we're paying attention to any potentialities there. This is a former regime, that seeks to export that ideology and try to sow terror. We're ready for that. We've seen these types of folks before, and the American people can rest assured that we're vigilant on that.
We're going to get to this issue of sleeper cells in the U.S., the threat to the homeland, in 1 second. But our former FBI assistant director, drone warfare has become really the go-to choice for regimes in the region, obviously in the Ukraine war as well. Your reaction to this news about the U.S. Embassy? We don't know anything about damage or injuries, loss of life, but this is breaking right now.
Yeah, Laura, we're seeing, as you mentioned, we've seen drones in the battlefield in Ukraine. It's a game changer. And again, our embassies are targets across the world, across the globe. They can get to one, they will, and it looks like they may have penetrated with their drones. And in this instance, look, I think we really got to worry about drones here in the U.S. as well. I mean, they're pretty prevalent. we haven't really demonstrated any real capability to stop drones in the United States. They're flying around everywhere. So that's an added concern. But, you know, drones are really, they're a weapon of choice for terrorists.
Yeah, we're way behind on drone production. Obviously, most of them built in China, 70–80%. Many also built in Ukraine. But we basically offshored our drone capacity and a lot of the individual component parts as well. So that's what President Trump's trying to ramp up. Chris, some good news. Jennifer Griffin is saying now that the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was empty at the time these Iranian drones struck. So there are no injuries. So that is some good news. But let's get back to this concern that it looks like DHS, the FBI, are not overstating their concern that with the number of individuals who crossed our border over the last several years, especially under Joe Biden, we really don't have a good sense of the threat to the homeland right now, given how many people from Islamic countries are here and those who may have some sympathy with the former Ayatollah and his regime.
Yes, I know. I mean, I know the intelligence agencies are working overtime, but those 4 years were devastating when it comes to, you know, not tracking potential terrorists. I mean, Hezbollah was here; they had cells here before that, but it's impossible that they weren't sending operatives across that open border during those 4 years. It was too good an opportunity. They're here in our cities: L.A., Michigan, up in Michigan, around the Detroit area, New York City, down here in North Carolina, where we took out an entire Hezbollah cell back in the mid-2000s when I was the head of the office here. I mean, they are here, and they are a clear and present danger. I hate to use cliches, but they are.
Yeah, and Chris, this is as DHS is not fully funded.
Okay, you guys, that's a lot. But there's something I want to show you. I don't know how much of this. Can y'all hear me? I don't know how much of this. Thank you, Jerome. I appreciate you. But I want to clue you guys in on what I'm watching right now. But I don't know how much we're going to get through. But I want to give you an idea. Sorry. I'm watching this in real time, so I want to bring this. I'm going to bring you guys in with me. Oh, wait. I think it's here. Okay. Let me know if you guys can hear it.
And must respond. Mr. Speaker, I've been speaking to our Gulf partners over the weekend. They're outraged by Iran's acts, particularly as they played no part in any strikes.
It's real news, but
and
let's
they've asked us to do more to defend them. Moreover, it is my duty, the highest duty of my office, to protect British lives. That is why we put British jets in the air, Typhoons and F-35s, as part of coordinated defensive operations, which have already successfully intercepted Iranian strikes, including, Mr. Speaker, taking out one drone that was heading towards a coalition base in Iraq, housing UK service personnel. I want to pay tribute to our brilliant servicemen and women, putting themselves in harm's way to keep others safe. And I know the whole House will join me in expressing our gratitude and our respect. But, Mr. Speaker, it is simply not possible to shoot down every Iranian missile and every drone after they've been launched. The only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source, in their storage depots or at the launchers. The US requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose, because they have the capabilities to do so. Yesterday evening, we took the decision to accept that new request in order to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians, putting British lives at risk, and hitting countries that have not been involved. To be clear, the use of British bases is limited to the agreed defensive purposes. We are not joining the US and Israeli offensive strikes. The basis for our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. It is in accordance with international law, and we've produced a summary of our legal advice, which clearly sets this out. We will keep the decision under review. Mr. Speaker, we are not joining the strikes, but we will continue our defensive actions in the region. France and Germany are also prepared to enable US action to destroy Iran's capability to fire missiles and drones from source. I've been in close contact with President Macron and Chancellor Merz in recent days, as well as President Trump and leaders across the region to that end. Mr. Speaker, be in no doubt, the regime in Iran is utterly abhorrent. In January, they murdered thousands of their own people, the full horror of which is still hidden from the world. For decades, they have sought to destabilize the region and export terror around the world. Their proxies in Yemen have targeted British ships in the Red Sea. They facilitated Russia's attacks in Ukraine. The regime's tentacles have even reached these shores, posing a direct threat to Iranian dissidents and to the Jewish community. Over the last year alone, Iran has backed more than 20 potentially lethal attacks on UK soil, each of which, Mr. Speaker, we have foiled. So it's clear the Iranian regime must never be allowed to get their hands on nuclear weapons. That remains the primary aim of the United Kingdom and our allies, including the US. And ultimately, this will have to be achieved at the negotiating table. Mr. Speaker, in this dangerous moment, our first thoughts are with our citizens in the region, friends, family members, and constituents. I recognize the deep concern that the situation is causing for those involved and for communities across the country. We're asking all British citizens in the region to register their presence so we can provide the best possible support, and to monitor the Home Office travel advice, which is being regularly updated. Across much of the region, airspace remains closed, and local authorities are advising individuals to shelter in place. The situation on the ground may remain challenging for some time, so we're sending rapid deployment teams to the region to support our British nationals on the ground. And we're in close contact with the travel industry and governments in the region, including with our friends in the UAE, given the concentration of British nationals in that country. And we're looking at all options to support our people. We want to ensure that they can return home as swiftly and safely as possible. The FCDO phone lines are open to provide consular support, and ministers are available to meet MPs to discuss any individual cases. Mr. Speaker, we're also reaching out to communities across the United Kingdom, including Muslim and Jewish community organisations, and we're making sure that sites across the country, including places of worship, have appropriate protective security in place. Mr. Speaker, the situation in the region is developing rapidly, so we will continue to update the House in coming days. Mr. Speaker, I've spoken recently about the toll that global events are taking here at home. They come crashing into our lives with ever greater frequency, hitting our economy, driving up prices on the supermarket shelves or at the pump, dividing communities, bringing anxiety and fear. That's why how we operate on the world stage matters so much. Mr. Speaker, we all remember the mistakes of Iraq, and we have learned those lessons. Any UK actions must always have a lawful basis and a viable, thought-through plan. I say again, we were not involved in the initial strikes on Iran, and we will not join offensive action now. But in the face of Iran's barrage of missiles and drones, we will protect our people in the region and support the collective self-defense of our allies, because that is our duty to the British people. It is the best way to eliminate the urgent threat, to prevent the situation spiraling further, and support a return to diplomacy. It is the best way to protect British interests and British lives. That is what this government is doing. And I commend this statement to the House.
So we were just listening in there to that latest statement from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer involving these escalating strikes in the Middle East. We are quickly approaching the top of the new hour. It is about to be 3 a.m. here on the East Coast in the U.S. It's about to be midnight over on the West Coast. If you are just joining us here, my name is Karala Hara, and we are continuing our coverage following all of the developments, details, and any impacts globally given the strikes and escalating fights in the Middle East. I want to bring us out to some images that we do have. This one coming out of Beirut in
Okay,
Lebanon.
let me see what I missed from that.
Throughout the day
Yeah.
today, the breaking news that Israel has announced that it is simultaneously striking targets in Beirut and also Tehran. Now, a lot of questions are being brought up by people who are following this very closely. One of them having to do with how this is going to be affecting oil prices. And the
That's a
prices
good
of gas.
question.
So I want to turn now to that topic, bringing onto the program Will Harris. He is a senior analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. Will, good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I want to start with the basics here. When we see conflicts like this, how quickly do retail gasoline and diesel prices actually react with geopolitical fighting?
Well, shortly, we've already seen the impact at the pump for Americans. We've already seen gasoline futures pop by over 10%, and this is just in this initial risk premium phase. We're currently looking at how the rest of this escalation in the Middle East is going to unfold. It really depends on the scale, the nature of the retaliation from the Iranians, and really the duration of the disruption through the Strait of Hormuz. This is where 20% of the world's crude supplies transits. And so obviously this is a very severe consequences for the global oil markets and for the American consumer.
I want to take us closer to the live images that we still have over in Beirut, Lebanon. You mentioned a few points there during this first answer that I want to touch on and go even deeper on. First, let's start with this, though. In the past few trading sessions, how have oil markets reacted to these latest strikes involving Israel, Iran, and Hezbollah? What is truly driving the price volatility at the moment?
So we've seen global oil benchmarks. So that's both Brent oil and US WTI. These have risen by roughly 10% or more since the initial strikes on the weekend. Now, it'll depend on any further disruption. We think that if this extends for another week or so with very few tankers transiting that Strait of Hormuz, we could see prices continue to climb into the 80s, 90s, and we think this could translate into gasoline prices approaching that $4 a barrel, $4 a gallon marker.
I think to go off of that, just to give a sense and a little more context to our viewers, right before this, what was the average price for that barrel? Just so that people know how it's shifted and how quickly it has.
Yeah, so the average price for a global benchmark oil barrel was roughly $70 a barrel. We are currently above 80 at the moment. So this is a pretty significant increase, particularly compared to historical standards. Now, but we think that there is significant upside potential depending on the scale of further disruption. This is only the initial risk phase. There's continued operations and production of oil within the Persian Gulf, but there's almost no tanker vessel traffic transiting that Strait of Hormuz, exporting that 20% of crude oil from the region. So this is the most important crude oil producing region in the world. And we will be watching that marine tanker traffic very closely over the next week, 2 weeks, because if that supply cannot get out, we're going to see much higher oil prices. Over $100 a barrel of oil is certainly possible if there's no oil coming out of the strait. That would equal $4, maybe even approaching $5 a gallon for the U.S. driver.
And we're going to be talking about the significance of the Strait of Hormuz a little more in depth in just a moment. First, though, I want to take us out to a social media post. Fox News Politics saying this gas price surge. Analysts warn consumers could see 25 to 50-cent jumps at the pump as Middle East tensions threaten the Strait of Hormuz, a critical corridor for 20% of global oil supply. All right, so let's just transition here to the Strait and just let our audience know and our viewers know, really hone in on the importance of that. So as the escalation here, it continues, and if we're to threaten more shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, how significant would that be for global supply flows and tanker rates? I mean, you touched on it previously just a little bit here, but if you can bring it here to perspective, when we talk about how we look at how important this strait is on a map, I mean, what really is going to be that big hit?
Yeah, so the Persian Gulf is 20% of global oil supply. And while a lot of countries around the world have inventories of oil that they can begin to draw down, within a week, 2 weeks maximum, there will be a significant premium being placed on non-Persian Gulf oil. This is where oil prices could really start to spiral. With being such a large share of global oil demand, or serving global oil demand, this supply needs to get out into the open ocean as soon as possible, or we will start to see large increases in oil pricing. We've already seen that 10% bump. You've very clearly noted that we've already seen a 25 to 50 cent change at the gas pump in the U.S. This is just the initial phase. So this could continue to go higher if this disruption persists. We are seeing these vessels are not transiting the strait. Marine insurance companies have also pulled their insurance policies. So, but we're still seeing this suspension. And the resumption of traffic around the Strait of Hormuz will be the critical component for this. And also, we will be looking for any potential Iranian drone strikes or military retaliation on energy infrastructure. We have seen that yesterday on the gas side. We saw drone strikes at the largest LNG facility in the world in Qatar, and they have fully suspended operations as a result. We saw natural gas prices spike on the back of that. And we think that the similar effect and impact could happen if some regional oil infrastructure is targeted by the Iranians.
You know, a lot of this developed so quickly here. Going back to some of these OPEC producers, especially focusing on Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they're watching out for this on high alert. Travel advisories have already been issued. So there are disruptions there. But Saudi Arabia, the UAE, are they in a position right now to offset any potential supply disruptions? And how long are they able to offset those disruptions?
So Saudi Arabia and the UAE are the top of the OPEC group. OPEC has just announced this weekend that they intend on increasing production by 200,000 barrels a day in April. The big key here is that these countries are full or almost fully reliant on that strait to increase production, to access global markets. So just the announcement of an extra 200,000 barrels a day is really not only a sort of drop in the ocean compared to the potential 20 million barrel a day loss from the entire region. It's also reliant on getting marine traffic through the strait. There are a couple of smaller options. There's an east-west pipeline that helps circumvent marine traffic through Saudi Arabia. That's only 5 million barrels a day. So that can help partly backfill these losses. But really, when you're talking about the scale of production from this region, 20% of global supply, there's nothing that can replace it. Inventories will start to be whittling down, and on the back of that, we'll start to see prices rising. And I think within 3 to 4 weeks ongoing with this disruption, you'll really start to hit a crisis stage of oil supply globally.
Talking about looking ahead to this crisis stage that we could be seeing, Will, as someone who has studied this extensively and monitors all of these changes and disruptions within oil supply and how it affects people, Are you able to possibly look at another scenario throughout, I don't know, the last few years that kind of would give people a sense, a real world example as to the impacts that they're going to be facing? How could it compare to this right now, the conflicts that we're seeing based off of the strikes with Iran?
Well, the only recent analog we have here is 2019, where there was some Iranian-backed militia called the Houthis in Yemen drone striked one of the largest oil facilities in the world in Saudi Arabia. This knocked out about 6 million barrels a day of capacity, very temporarily, only for a week. But we still saw oil prices spike sharply on that. So these are very, very sensitive supply demand dynamics in the oil market. If you take out a big chunk of it, as we are looking right now, either through a suspension of marine traffic or through killing the operations of the actual energy infrastructure, there's going to be a sharp reaction in the oil market. And I think for U.S. gasoline prices, the outlook is probably higher from here unless we see an immediate de-escalation of military activity between Iran, U.S., Israel, and the Arabian neighbors.
You know, not a lot of national news outlets are following this story closely, the impact to the oil industry, the prices, what consumers are going to be facing. Will, is there a particular, I don't know, focus within all of your analysis and everything that you're watching here that you feel has not been talked about enough that you think our viewers or anyone monitoring the situation should be aware about and should be watching out for?
Yes, so I think the one thing that is really, really key here is the duration of the disruption. It's not just a 1 week disruption can be managed. A 4 week disruption, things start to break in the system. So I think that's one area where I'd be looking at, and quite related to that, it's what the Trump administration and Secretary Hegseth are deciding as far as operations within the region. It's going to hinge very, very clearly on how this war progresses, whether it escalates further or de-escalates, and particularly as it relates to some of this energy infrastructure within the region. If some of that oil infrastructure gets hit, like we saw the gas infrastructure did yesterday, then we are definitely going to see major dislocations in oil supply on top of the disruptions in marine traffic, tanker traffic getting out of the strait.
Will Harris, a senior analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. We appreciate your time here joining us live now from Fox to break this down. Of course, we are watching out for all of these developments. As you said, we probably have a week, and then we'll see what happens after that. We look forward to checking in with you soon.
Thank you.
We are going to step away for a brief commercial break as we've been talking about oil prices, something that is top of mind for many. Following this situation, I just want to reference back one more time the social media post from Fox News Politics. Gas price surge. Analysts warn consumers could see 25 to 50 cent jumps at the pump as Middle East tensions threaten the Strait of Hormuz, a critical corridor for 20% of global oil supply. We'll be right back.
I'm gonna stop that until the commercials are over, and I'll read y'all comments. Pray for our country, you guys. Some of you feel like we're headed towards World War III. There's no indication of that. We haven't even declared war against Iran. Hey, Jerome. Jerome says, hey, MU, this is positive, good content. Thank you so much, Jerome. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your donations and your super chat, Jerome. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you guys that support the commentary. I just got through saying I don't block anyone, and I had to escort someone out the room. Let me read your comments. I don't make this stuff up, you guys. This is what's happening in the world. It's classic financing move through pockets. I'm on mute. Watermelon, you can't hear me? Can y'all hear me? I don't know what to tell you. Can you hear me? No? Okay, wait, let me try to fix it. I don't know. I'm just gonna talk anyway. Last time we officially declared war was World War II. We won't. You hear me fine? Okay. Okay. Let me see what you guys are saying. Iran done can stop their missiles, and the kinetic force is. I don't understand what you're saying. Okay, you guys. So I was going to show you guys the update with the Epstein files because you know that Clinton's had their depositions, but we'll do that on a different stream, not this one. Okay, I think they're back. Damn it. They're back.
Here, this one coming out of Cyprus, it's the location where a British military base was struck by Iran just a couple of days ago. And then we also have a live look out of Beirut in Lebanon, where smoke can still be seen here in the distance. Israeli military earlier announced that it was conducting strikes simultaneously against Beirut and also Tehran. Just yesterday, if you joined us overnight or really early in the morning, we previewed the fact that members of the Trump administration, including Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, they were going to be giving an update to several lawmakers in the U.S. on the strikes against Iran. Now, we did play out some of the comments when they happened live. Secretary Rubio, before heading into that meeting, he spoke to reporters to answer some questions. But in case you missed it, I'd like to play those out for you next.
The purpose of this is to destroy that missile capability. Why does Iran want that ballistic missile capability? What they are trying to do and have been trying to do for a very long time is build a conventional weapons capability as a shield where they can hide behind. Meaning, there would come a point where they have so many conventional missiles, so many drones, and it can inflict so much damage that no one can do anything about their nuclear program. That is what they were trying to do, is put themselves in a place of immunity where the damage they could inflict on the region would be so high that no one can do anything about their nuclear program or their nuclear ambitions. They are producing, by some estimates, over 100 of these missiles a month. Compare that to the 6 or 7 interceptors that can be built a month. They can build 100 of these a month, not to mention the thousands of one-way attack drones that they also have. They've been doing this for a very long time, and by the way, they've been doing it under sanction. You see the attacks they're conducting right now? They're attacking airports, they're attacking hotels, they're hitting not just military bases, they're attacking our embassies directly, they're attacking facilities that have nothing to do with war or with military, and that's a weakened Iran. That's in Iran despite years of sanction. Imagine a year from now or a year and a half from now, the capabilities they would have to inflict damage on us. It's an unacceptable risk, especially in the hands of a regime that's run by radical clerics. The Ayatollah was a radical cleric. That entire regime is led by radical clerics who don't make geopolitical decisions. They make decisions on the basis of theology, their view of theology, which is an apocalyptic one. That has to be taken very seriously as well. So that was the purpose for what this operation is all about. That's what it's focused on. As the president said earlier today, it is on or ahead of schedule. I will defer to the Department of War to discuss the progress being made at a tactical level, but it was the right decision and an important decision for the safety and security of the world. No.
And
What-
was there an imminent threat? Did you tell lawmakers that there was an imminent
There
threat?
absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, There would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life. No, first, well, let me two things I would say. Number one is, no matter what, ultimately this operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this operation needed to happen because Iran in about a year or a year and a half would cross the line of immunity, meaning they would have so many short-range missiles, so many drones that no one could do anything about it because they could hold the whole world hostage. Look at the damage they're doing now. And this is a weakened Iran. Imagine a year from now. So that had to happen. Obviously, we were aware of Israeli intentions and understood what that would mean for us, and we had to be prepared to act as a result of it. But this had to happen no matter what.
President Trump said overnight that his top choices to now run with Iran were killed in strikes. Does the United States have a firm plan for how they intend to handle this power vacuum in Iran to ensure that an Irish hardliner does not take power?
So two things, and two things can be true. Number one is our mission and our focus is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities and their ability to manufacture them, as well as the threat posed by their Navy to global shipping. That's our objective. That said, we would not mind, we would not be heartbroken, and we hope that the Iranian people can overthrow this government and establish a new future for that country. We would love for that to be possible. But the objective of this mission is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities and of their naval capabilities.
So are you saying,
based on that, are you saying that there is no responsibility, no plan for the U.S. to at least play a role in whatever government comes next?
We might. We'll see how circumstances play out. But I'm telling you what the objectives of this operation are. The objectives of this operation are to destroy their ballistic missile capability and make sure they can't rebuild it, and make sure that they can't hide behind that to have a nuclear program. That's the objective of the mission. That said, abundantly clear, we would love for there to be an Iran that's not governed by radical Shia clerics. As I've said myself repeatedly for years, the leadership of that country does not reflect the people of Iran, and I think that's been pretty apparent in the protests that you've seen. If there's something we can do to help them down the road, we'd obviously be open to it, but that's not the objective. The objective of this mission is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities.
Regime change has not gone well for the United States.
The what now?
Regime change has not gone well for the United States for many, many decades. How do you assure the American public that things will not get worse for the next regime that comes in there and replaces the
Well, we would love to see this regime be replaced. And ultimately, as the president has said, he calls, but let me finish my answer. As the president has said, he would love for the people of Iran to use this as an opportunity to rise up and remove these leaders. They've been wanting to remove them from a long time. We've seen successive waves of protests, and we've seen them slaughter people, okay? But the objective of this mission is to make sure they don't have these weapons that can threaten us and our allies in the region. That's why we're doing what we're doing now. And while we would love to see a new regime, the bottom line is no matter who governs that country a year from now, they're not going to have these ballistic missiles and they're not going to have these drones to threaten us. That's the objective of this mission, is to deny them the ability to use ballistic missiles to threaten their neighbors, to threaten our bases, to threaten our presence in the region, and ultimately as a shield behind which they can do whatever they want with their nuclear weapons ambition. We were not going to let them hide behind that, and that's why this was such a critical mission to undertake now while they were at their weakest point, and not a year from now where they could inflict even more damage and perhaps already be behind that point of immunity. Go right here behind, go ahead, you and then you. Yes.
Your critics in Congress have said that they should have a role, they should be able to weigh in here, and there are going to be war powers resolutions votes in Congress later this week. Why not notify Congress ahead of this, and does Congress?
Well, we did. We notified Congress. I mean, we notified the Gang of Eight. We notified congressional leadership. There's no law that requires us to do that. The law says we have to notify them 48 hours after beginning hostilities. We've done that. I think the notification went today, but we did notify members of Congress in advance. But we can't notify 535 members of Congress. And, well, the Congress can vote on whatever they want, but there's no law that requires us to do that. And I want to say something because I see people on TV. Look, that's fine. If they want to take a war powers vote, they can do that. They've done that. They've done that a bunch of times. But there's no, people keep saying that there's no law that requires the president to have done anything with regards to this. To begin with, no presidential administration has ever accepted the War Powers Act as constitutional. Not Republican presidents, not Democratic presidents. That said, we have followed the notification at 48 hours. And we're here today. I've done more Gang of Eight briefings than I got in the 4 years that Biden was president and I was a member of the Gang of Eight. All of that said, we complied with the law 100%. and we're going to continue to comply with it. We've done the notification, and we officially to Congress, but we did notify members of Congress. We just can't notify 535 people. That's not possible, but we did the Gang of Eight twice. I briefed them last week, and then I called them the night before the operation.
Can you tell us what you know, Mr. Secretary, of the administration knows about the strike on a building in southern Iran that the Iranians are saying was a school, reports of large numbers of civilians, including children killed?
Yeah, I've seen those reports. I don't have, I would refer you, not because I'm not trying to answer your question, but I don't want to get it wrong. The Department of War would be investigating that if that was our strike. And I would refer your question to them, and I'll make sure they're aware that you have that question. But we'd like to know. Well, clearly, the United States would not deliberately target a school. Our objectives are missiles, both the ability to manufacture them and the ability to launch them, and the one-way attract drones. That would be our focus, and that's what we would be focused on. We would have no interest and, frankly, no incentive to target civilian infrastructure. The Iranians are, on the other hand, targeting civilian infrastructure. You guys have seen it. I'm sure you've seen it. They're hitting hotels. They're hitting embassies. They're hitting airports. They're hitting oil infrastructure. Well, it'd be very tragic, but I can't speak to the details behind it because I just don't have it. It would be a tragic outcome if it's happened. I don't have the details as to what led to it, but what is clear is that the United States would not deliberately target a school. They are, on the other hand, deliberately targeting civilians, as you've seen, because you know why? They are a terroristic regime. They sponsor terrorism and they participate in terrorism.
What's your message to Americans who are concerned about rising energy prices given the spiking of oil prices today?
Yes, and we knew that going in would be a factor, and so we have a program in place that will begin to be implemented by Secretary Wright, Secretary Bessent. We talked about it last night, again, about this program. We talked this morning, and starting tomorrow, you will see us rolling out those phases to try to mitigate against that. Obviously, markets are going to be reacting to news about what's happening. And again, a reminder, think about it, okay? This terroristic regime led by radical clerics has the ability, potentially, to shut off 20% of global energy. That's the kind of leverage they have because of their Navy. We're going to destroy their Navy. But there is a plan in place. We anticipated this could be an issue, and Secretary Wright and Bessent will begin to roll out those steps starting tomorrow to mitigate against the impact that could have. I got to do this briefing, so I got a couple more. Yeah.
Do you anticipate putting boots on the ground, and how long do you anticipate the conflict to last?
Well, we don't. Let me say two things about it. Number one, the president always has the options to undertake whatever operations he decides to do as the commander-in-chief. That said, we believe the objective that we have set for this mission, which is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities, both launch capability and manufacturing, can be achieved without ground forces. Right now, we're not postured for ground forces, but obviously the president has those options. He's never going to rule out anything. But right now, our focus is on the destruction of their ballistic missile launchers, their ballistic missile stockpiles, and their ballistic missile manufacturing capability, as well as their one-way attract drones and their Navy, because of the threat it poses to global shipping.
How long does
All right, I can only do one more, right there in the middle. Yes, sir.
Is there a diplomatic exchange going on right now between the U.S. and Iran? Any exchanges whatsoever outside?
No, not at this time. I mean, look, we always have people that reach out from inside of governments. You don't know if they're authorized to reach out or not. They're suffering a tremendous amount of damage. Honestly, again, I'm not going to give away the details of our tactical efforts, but the hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. The next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now. Someone was screaming, how long will it take? I don't know how long it'll take. We have objectives. We will do this as long as it takes to achieve those objectives, and we will achieve those objectives. The world will be a safer place when we're done with this operation. All right? Thank you, guys.
And that was Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking to reporters just before updating lawmakers on those strikes against Iran that were conducted by the U.S. and Israeli military forces early on Saturday. We're taking live here once again over in Beirut, Lebanon, where Israel earlier on today announced that it was now conducting simultaneous strikes against Beirut and also Tehran. We'll be right back.
Okay, Watermelon. I'm not sure what she says. Sleeper cells? The U.S. is getting murked. I don't know, you guys. Vote red in the midterms. Oh, wait. Hang on. There's lost the stream. Oh, they're on commercial. Hi, Daisha. How are you? Good morning. I'm just hanging out with you guys. Keeping up with what's going on in Iran. How are you, Daisha? We would not have a country if Democrats cheated their way in again. Vote for the midterms. Vote in midterms. Conservatives is going to be really important. And you be sure to send. That's not happening. That's not happening. Okay. Iran quiets the chat. We're not at war. We're not officially at war. Hang on, you guys.
Operation Epic Fury is laser focused on destroying Iranian offensive missiles. Want to bring to you now also that video that I just spoke about moments ago. This was released alongside that social media post. And the latest regarding this entire situation does come as reports of the sounds of explosions rang out across Tehran through the night and into the early morning hours this Tuesday as the war in the Middle East intensifies. The U.S. and Israel have continued to pound Iran since the killing of its supreme leader happened on Saturday. Tehran and its allies have hit back against Israel, neighboring Gulf states, and targets critical to the world production of oil and natural gas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu late on Monday defended the decision to go to war, contending in an interview on Fox News that Iran was rebuilding new sites and new places that would make their ballistic missile program and their atomic bomb program immune within months without providing that evidence. Also, going back to this social media post from CENTCOM alongside this video, they also released some more pictures regarding all of these operations that the U.S. is involved in. So you can see them here on the screen as my producer circulates through them. Also coming in, the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia was hit by Iranian drones as well. That attack from 2 drones on the U.S. Embassy early Tuesday caused a limited fire and minor damage, according to Saudi Arabia's defense ministry, which did not release further details. It follows an attack the day before on the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait. State Department in the U.S. says that evacuations of non-emergency personnel and family reached 6 nations on Tuesday, with the inclusion of the UAE. The UAE, which has long been considered a safe corner of the Middle East, has been dragged into the Iran war with interceptions and attacks. The other countries include Bahrain, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, and Qatar. I do also want to bring you this. It's a Truth Social post from President Trump. This is the latest one that he posted overnight, and it says this quote: "The United States munition stockpiles have, at the medium and upper medium grade, never been higher or better, as was stated to me today. We have a virtually unlimited supply of these weapons. Wars can be fought forever and very successfully using these supplies, which are better than other countries' finest arms. At the highest end, we have a good supply, but are not where we want to be. Much additional high-grade weaponry is stored for us in our outlying countries. Sleepy Joe Biden spent all of his time and our country's money giving everything to P.D. Barnum, Zelensky of Ukraine, hundreds of billions of dollars worth, and while he gave so much of the super high-end away free, he didn't bother to replace it. Fortunately, I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so. The United States is stocked and ready to win big. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump." We're waiting to see if the president has any more statements to make there via his Truth social media platform, and we will bring you those updates, as always, here at Live Now from Fox. Do want to go back though to some of the comments from U.S. lawmakers. So just before the commercial break, I showcased as U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke to reporters before briefing some of those lawmakers. Now, after that meeting, we did get some comments from a few senators, Congress members, and next, I want to play out the comments from Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Good afternoon, everybody. We got a briefing from what was really a gang of 8. It became, I think, a game of 20. I stand here with our other chairman, Rick Crawford of our Intelligence Committee, House Intel Committee, and Chairman Tom Cole of the Appropriations Committee. We brought the appropriators, the chair and the ranking member in and expanded the group to talk about all aspects of this. We got a great briefing, as you know, from the leaders of this, Secretary of State Rubio and the Secretary of War, Hegseth. John Ratcliffe was their CIA director, and of course, General Raising Kane, Joint Chiefs of Staff. They gave us operational details. They gave us the rationale for what was done. And I was very satisfied with the briefing. It follows up on the original Gang of 8 briefing that we had more than a week ago, several days before the Operation Epic Fury began. I was satisfied at that time. I had, as I can speak for myself, as the leader of the legislative branch, the Speaker of the House, I had multiple follow-ups with the Secretary of State. I spoke with the President about it multiple times, and that was in advance of the operation, and we knew what was happening. I think there are 2 critical points that I just want to emphasize, the non-classified summary of what has happened here. First of all, to me, the most critical point is that this was a defensive measure, a defensive operation. And why is that? I took some notes, and this is not classified, so I'll tell you what I think is important. Israel was determined to act in their own defense here, with or without American support. Why? Because Israel faced what they deemed to be an existential threat. Iran was building missiles at a radical and a rapid clip to the point where our allies in the region could not keep up. As you know, Iran has long vowed to take out Israel, wipe it off the map, and they have long seen that as a critical threat to their very existence. Because Israel was determined to act with or without the U.S., our commander-in-chief and the administration and the officials I just named had a very difficult decision to make. They had to evaluate the threats to the U.S., to our troops, to our installations, to our assets in the region and beyond. And they determined, because of the exquisite intelligence that we had, that if Israel fired upon Iran and took action against Iran to take out the missiles, then they would have immediately retaliated against U.S. personnel and assets. We have troops in harm's way, and we have many Americans in the region, and that was of a great concern. If we had waited for all of those eventualities to take place, the consequences of inaction on our part could have been devastating. We don't know at what magnitude, but you can assume, because it is common sense, that if Iran had begun to fire all of their missile arsenal, short and mid-range missiles at our personnel and our assets and our installations, we would have suffered staggering losses. And if we had waited to respond before acting first, then those losses would have been far greater than if we had done what we did. That was their decision. I can guarantee you this: if we had not acted, if the president, the commander-in-chief, had not acted as he did, those same officials would have been hauled in here by members of Congress and asked them why in the world they waited if they had exquisite intelligence, knowing that that would happen, that we would suffer such staggering losses. Why did they not act to prevent it? So I am convinced that they did the right thing. There's another critical point. What were the objectives? The objectives for our Operation Epic Fury, I am convinced, because I've now been to multiple briefings and I've understood the point of this, the objective was not regime change. The objective was to take out those missiles, the short and mid-range missiles, and their ability to produce them. We did that. That was objective number 1. Objective number 2 was to eliminate their naval capabilities, destroy those and the missiles. And we are well on our way to accomplishing that mission. That is why I think the president has said In his own words, the commander-in-chief has said this is going to be a operation that's short in duration. We certainly hope that's true. We pray for our troops and all those in harm's way, our allies as well. I am encouraged that our NATO allies are standing with us. The Arab states are largely standing with us, publicly, certainly privately. Iran was a great threat to everybody in the region and everybody in the world because it was an evil regime. The Ayatollah is no more. That was not the mission of the U.S. to go in and take out the regime, but that happened, and in my estimation, that is a great development for freedom-loving people around the world. You guys want to make any comments? Take questions. Go ahead, Rahim. Yes.
Do you guys discuss the need for supplemental to get some new munitions and other things that our military might need?
It was brought up in discussion. There are more details to be determined. Of course, it depends upon how long the operation goes and what the need is. But our appropriators certainly asked that that question. But I think there'll be some time before we can put a final number on it.
Is there any point you think Congress will need a congressional authorization?
So, you know my background. I'm a constitutional law attorney. I'm a jealous guardian of Article 1 in the legislative branch. My understanding of the law, and has always been, and this is the tradition and the way the law has been used and observed over many decades, the president was acting well within his authority. What I just told you is the scope of what happened here and the situational awareness that they had at the time to make this decision. It was not, it's not a declaration of war. It's not something that the president was required because it's defensive in nature and in design and in necessity to come to Congress and get a vote first. And if they had briefed a larger group than the Gang of Eight, you know, there's a real threat that very sensitive intelligence that we had, you know, might have been leaked or something. So this is why the commander-in-chief of our armed forces has the latitude that any commander-in-chief, any president always has, because they have a set of information that is sensitive, timely, and urgent, and they have to be able to act upon it. They did that. Now, there, as you know, under our system, there are timetables that are involved here, but I think the idea that we would move a War Powers Act vote right now, I mean, it will be forced to the floor, but the idea that we would take the ability of our commander-in-chief, the president, take his authority away right now to finish this job is a frightening prospect to me. It's dangerous. And I am certainly hopeful, and I believe we do have the votes to put it down. That's going to be a good thing for the country and our security and stability.
But should the Congress authorize this war as a defensive operation if the U.S. struck first, Mr. Speaker?
The U.S. struck in a defensive posture if we knew for a fact. Wait a minute. Let me answer the question. I thought I just did answer that question. If we knew for a fact that Israel was going to move, Iran was going to respond, and Iran was going to strike not just Israel, but the U.S. Remember, we're the great Satan, as they always say. Israel's the little Satan, okay? That they would act. We knew that intelligence. There was a name for the plan. We had all the information, all the intelligence. I'm not going to tell you how we knew that, but we did. We have the greatest intelligence operation in the world and the greatest military. And we had an obligation and responsibility to use it to protect our interest, our people first, our troops, and our personnel and our assets. That is an America first objective. That is the objective of the country. The first responsibility of the federal government is to protect the country and its interests, and that's what we did here. I don't know how it's.
Congress has the authority to declare war. Shouldn't it have authorized this war?
In my view, right now, our military and the commander-in-chief, he is presiding over the completion of an operation that was limited in scope, limited in its objective, and absolutely necessary for our defense. I think that operation will be wound up quickly. By God's grace, it will. That is our prayer for everybody involved, our troops and everyone else. And of course, for the people of Iran, who are now rising up euphorically to have a chance for freedom, to have an evil, murderous regime removed. It is a great thing and a great time in history, and we're proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
And those were the comments from House Speaker Mike Johnson there as he spoke to reporters after being briefed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary Pete Hegseth regarding those strikes against Iran. Want to bring us out, though, to this live image that we have of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Later on today, several more lawmakers are going to receive yet another briefing on the operations in the Middle East, and we're following those developments. Any new information we get, we'll bring it to you here. We'll be right back.
Okay, let me get to the chat. Some of you are saying that Trump is evil. I'm waiting for the commercial to be over with. Donald Trump won all swing states. Okay. And I know that some of you don't like him. Oh, wait. Oh, they're not on commercial. Lowest turnout in history? Was it the lowest turnout in history? Daisha, he won. You guys are gonna have to deal with it. I want you guys to be happy. Okay. Was it the lowest turnout? He won all swing states. But listen, even if we had a Democrat in office, I support the commander-in-chief. That man ran to keep out of jail. No, he didn't run to keep out of jail. Steve Hope, I don't know where you were during the election. I'm not about to answer where. Like, if you don't know, you don't know. You would have to know what a swing state is. I don't know if Trump is evil or just oblivious. I really think Stephen Miller is calling the shots and projecting. Okay. Here's the whatever. I'm interested in what you guys think about what's happening in Iran. Let me watch this last part with you. I want you guys to be happy, okay? I'm praying for our country. But he is our president.
Just before the commercial break, I played out some comments from U.S. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. He spoke to reporters after he was briefed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary Pete Hegseth on the strikes conducted against Iran from over the weekend. I do, though, now want to turn to some comments made by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer on Capitol Hill. He also speaks on the situation.
We hold their families in our hearts. We pray for all American families who have loved ones serving right now in uniform. And we pray for everyone across the Middle East who are right now in harm's way, many who have relatives here in America, including relatives who fled the regime in Iran, and all who are worried for their families and friends back home across the region. Mr. President, today, many Americans across the country and across the political spectrum are wondering, why are our troops back in conflict in the Middle East? That's what Americans are wondering. Why has Donald Trump started a new war with Iran? Let me be clear, I will not shed a tear for Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran who was killed in the initial rounds of airstrikes over the weekend. For decades, Khamenei sponsored terrorist attacks against American troops. He called for the destruction of Israel and America. And under his rule, the people of Iran have suffered immensely. But, Mr. President, no matter how you feel about the Iranian regime, we stand at a dangerous moment for our troops and for the Middle East, and even perhaps for the world. Donald Trump has just launched America into a full-scale conflict against one of our most fervent adversaries without a plan, without an endgame, and without authorization for Congress or even a debate in full view of the American people. The consequences are already mounting, as I've said. 4 American service members have been killed. Several others have been wounded. And the president says many more casualties are likely to come. This is not what the American people want. The American people want more effective action to address the rising costs that are crushing them. They want more access to health care, affordable health care, and to buy homes and to get good paying jobs. They don't want a war that leads to lost American lives and that costs billions and billions of taxpayer dollars. They don't want a war that raises the price of gas at the pump. Make no mistake about it. This is a war of choice, not necessity. And regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, or even if you don't pay attention to politics, there's one thing almost everyone agrees on. We are sick and tired of endless wars in the Middle East. And there is real danger that this is the road we are on right now. Americans are sick of Donald Trump paying so much attention to military escapades while costs keep going up here at home. Venezuela, Somalia, Iran, and on and on. Where is Donald Trump going to strike tomorrow? He is one of the most trigger-happy presidents in all of American history. Donald Trump ran for office on the promise to wind down America's endless wars. What he's doing is exactly the opposite. He's picking military fight all over the world and not taking care of business here at home. 1 year into office, Donald Trump has broken his promise to end forever wars again and again and again, from Venezuela to threats against Greenland to now a new war with Iran. Congress must act to rein in Donald Trump's belligerence. Very soon, the Senate will vote on a bipartisan war powers resolution I am leading with Senators Kaine and Schiff and Paul. Our resolution affirms what the Constitution already says. The president cannot send U.S. forces to fight a war in Iran without congressional approval. As soon as our resolution comes to the floor, senators need to pick a side. Stand with Americans who don't want war, or stand with Donald Trump as he single-handedly starts another war. I urge my colleagues to support our resolution. The American people will be watching how senators vote, and they will remember those whose thumbs pointed aye and whose thumbs pointed nay. I yield the floor. No quorum.
Clerk will call the roll. Ms. Also Brooks.
So we were just listening in there to the comments made by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. This happening just yesterday over on Capitol Hill. He focused most of his comments on the situation developing now in the Middle East and the decision by the Trump administration to strike Iran over the weekend. Want to take us out to a social media post from Senator Schumer. He says this: "We grieve the deaths of 6 U.S. service members who were killed in action this weekend. Their families are in our hearts. We pray for all American families who have lost loved ones serving and who have loved ones serving. And we pray for everyone across the Middle East who are now in harm's way." Want to bring us out once again to the image of the Capitol building over in Washington, D.C. Just a reminder that later on today, more lawmakers are set to be briefed on those strikes against Iran. The briefing is going to be featuring Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and also Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It comes as we continue to get more images from all over the world, including in the Middle East. And one in particular that we continue to have here on the screen comes to us from Beirut in Lebanon. That is where some of the latest strikes were conducted earlier on today, after Israel did announce that it was simultaneously striking targets in Beirut and also in Tehran. So from this live vantage point, you can still see that smoke is rising there off into the distance. It's a similar image to what has been showcased at least throughout the past couple of hours or so since I've been on the desk with you all. We're going to step away for another quick commercial break, but we continue with more of this coverage when we come back.
All right, you guys have any thoughts for me? I'm not even trying to bore out with that stuff. I can literally watch that all day. Oh wait, where am I? Let me read your comments. How long have I been here? 2.5 hours. Because states have to report eligible votes to the feds. Either states or feds can take your voting rights. Well, okay, you guys are talking about voter IDs. I wish I could find. I think I showed that to you guys. Hang on for a second. All right. I was looking at something, but I think I showed that to you guys already. Hey, New School, how are you? I'm just hanging out with you guys for a little bit longer while I'm up. I'm actually studying something right now, and listening to this with you guys.
On the west coast of the U.S. Thank you all for staying with us here at Live Now from Fox. My name is Carla Hara. The focus continues to be the escalating tensions and the fighting that does continue, those strikes that are also continuing throughout the Middle East. I want to bring us out to several of these live images that we have been showcasing for you throughout this morning. All of these coming to us live, different feeds that we have access to here, and all of them are international live looks. So taking a look here in the biggest box, we do have that image coming out of Beirut in Lebanon, where Israel has announced that it is going to be continuing more of those strikes, simultaneous strikes that they're also conducting over in Tehran. On the top right-hand side of your screen is that military British base that was hit in Cyprus, by Iran over the weekend. And then a couple of live images that we have over in Israel, including Jerusalem and also Tel Aviv. Bringing us out to more of these updates that we are getting here minute by minute as the story does continue to develop and the impact is being felt by millions around the world. The Associated Press is saying this most recently, about a couple minutes ago. They reported that a fire broke out in an oil industrial facility at one of the seven ones that is located in the UAE. It comes as forces intercepted a drone attack. No casualties were reported, and the government media office said the drone was intercepted and that shrapnel landed in the Fujairah oil industry zone. The office said the fire was put down and operations did resume. About a half an hour ago, they said at least 5 people have been killed and wounded in airstrikes in Iran's western city of Hamadan. That's according to the state-run IRNA news agency in what they have reported. Strikes were also reported across other cities as well. Also, Lebanon's state-run national news agency says the Lebanese army is evacuating some of its positions along the border with Israel. We had a live look at the border with Israel and Lebanon. We'll see if we can get it back here onto the screen. But the agency there said that the troops are redeploying to other posts, and the report comes after Israel's military said it is conducting operations inside Lebanon along the border with Israel. Also, Israel's army said today that Iran's firepower has been weakened. The army spokesperson said Israeli and U.S. attacks on Iran have limited significantly Iran's ability to fire. They also said that Israel has been going after Iran's missile launchers and have taken out dozens of them. Iran has fired hundreds of missiles, but it's hard to tally the total amount, with Iran also striking other countries. The pace of missiles being launched at Israel has slowed since the first 2 days of war. Spokesperson said the slowdown also could be partly attributed to Iran understanding the war could go on for longer than they had thought, and they are trying to pace themselves. Iran has started the process, meanwhile, of returning Iranian pilgrims from the shrine cities of Mecca and Medina. That's according, again, to more reporting from their state media news agency. Iran's ambassador to Saudi Arabia said the process of returning 9,000 Iranians currently in the cities of Mecca and Medina began Monday. In a report carried by the Iranian Judiciary News Agency, they said the departure is taking place in the same manner as during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran in 2025. Iranian pilgrims will leave Saudi Arabia through Saudi-Iraqi border crossings and return to Iran from Iraq. The announcement came during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan and a widening that has seen Iran target sites in Saudi Arabia. Also, the U.S. ambassador in Israel has told Americans that the best way to leave is through Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. Mike Huckabee said in a social media post early Tuesday that the embassy was receiving lots of evacuation requests as embassy staff are sheltering in place, saying, quote, "They are very limited options, not sure when Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv will reopen." He advised Americans to take buses to Egypt's resorts in southern Sinai, describing that route to be the best. It also comes as Secretary of State Marco Rubio had issued a video statement on social media, and he also was talking about some of these evacuation routes, what Americans can do to get out of some of these most affected areas. The State Department also issuing a list of several of these countries that are facing travel advisories, some of them more severe than others. But there's a lot to keep up with on this Tuesday morning. We have just hit a new hour, 4 a.m. on the East Coast, 1 a.m. over on the West Coast. I want to turn it over now to some comments made by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So he joined Sean Hannity and Fox News to discuss the latest regarding these operations that are continuing. Let's listen in.
95% of all the problems you see in the Middle East are generated by Iran. And the worldwide terror network that they built is generated and orchestrated from Iran. So when you take away Iran, when you let the people of Iran have the opportunity to act, to liberate themselves, free themselves from the yoke of this terror machine, you get a different future. I think that will open up the way for many peace treaties with other Arab countries, with Muslim countries. I think it changes the world. If we go through what we plan to do, I think it will create conditions for peace. This is not an endless war. This is, in fact, something that will usher in an era of peace that we haven't even dreamed of. There's never been a president like Donald J. Trump. His resoluteness, his decisiveness, his clarity of thinking, the way he gets right to the crux of things. It cuts through all the fluff, cuts through the chase, gets down to the main point, and it gets down to the main action that needs to be taken. And I think for Israel, and I think for the countries of the free world, let me tell you, I think for the world, we're very lucky to have him as the leader of the free world.
And those were just some of the short comments we were able to get there. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu joining Sean Hannity on Fox News' Hannity. On your screen, we also have this, the latest social media post from the Prime Minister's office and his account. It says, the Tehran terror regime fires on civilians, and we fire on the Tehran terror regime to protect civilians. We embarked on this campaign to remove existential threats and to create the conditions for the brave Iranian people to cast off the yoke of tyranny. That day is near, and when it arrives, Israel and the United States will be there. And then that is followed along by a quote that says, first of all, Israeli citizens, I ask you to follow the instructions of the Home Front Command. They save lives. They have saved many lives here, but unfortunately not everyone, because there were people who sadly were not inside protected areas. I send condolences to the families who have lost their loved ones, and I also send wishes for full and speedy recovery to the wounded. And we are helping and will continue to help. I want to thank the rescue and rehabilitation teams. We will rebuild, and we will build even stronger. The U.S., of course, offering widespread support to Israel as these strikes and the escalation continues over in the Middle East. So I showcased the latest Truth social media post from President Trump just moments ago, actually before the commercial break. I want to turn now, though, to some comments that he made, President Trump, that is, at an event that was hosted just yesterday at the White House. Right off the top, he spoke about these operations that are continuing as the threat of Iran also continues and persists. Let's listen in.
So before we begin this important ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this, let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped, but everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing. The intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime, and they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out. And they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful by far military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always, and we have right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now. I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership. And as you know, that was done in about an hour. So we're ahead of schedule there by a lot. But please join me in thanking every American service member who bravely is standing in harm's way. They really are incredible. And I just want to thank you. We have a lot of them right here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And those were the comments made by President Trump as he hosted an event and a ceremony there at the White House yesterday honoring service members. We're going to step away for a quick commercial break, but much more to get to in terms of the developments in the Middle East when we come back.
I see a lot of Trump supporters in the chat. A lot of you understand what is happening and what is going on. I'm kind of a sick puppy. That last statement just makes me laugh every time he says it. All right, guys, let me listen to it. Okay. And that's in Barron. Grocery prices are an issue for every Western country, not an American problem. I think number one, the grocery prices. Oh my God, I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. Were high under the Biden administration. That's not a Donald Trump thing. Donald Trump came and had to fix it. Grocery prices are high, but the cost of eggs are lower. You've never had a president working that hard. His work ethic is insane. Right, Kaiser? But I hear what you guys are saying. Your channel rocks. Girl, Hoopty West. I'm telling you. Thank you, Hoopty West. I appreciate you. Did he fix food prices? Donald Trump has only been in office for a little over a year. And you have to remember, the Supreme Court has fought Donald Trump. The lefties has fought Donald Trump along the way. And if it wasn't for all the obstacles put in Donald Trump's way, he would have gotten a lot more done. But he has still done a lot within this year.
tonight to discuss the operations in Iran. I also played out comments from President Donald Trump, who spoke briefly on Operation Epic Fury before an event that he was scheduled to speak at there in Washington, D.C. Next, I want to get to the update, though, that was provided by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth along with General Dan Kane. This is what they had to say about the situation in Iran.
Well, good morning. We just finished an update with Admiral Brad Cooper, the CENTCOM commander, across the CENTCOM AOR, our leadership and troops, as you would expect, doing a fantastic job. 2 days ago, under the direction and direct orders of President Donald J. Trump, the Department of War launched Operation Epic Fury, the most lethal, most complex, and most precise aerial operation in history. For 47 long years, the expansionist and Islamist regime in Tehran has waged a savage, one-sided war against America. They didn't always declare it openly, except for their constant chants of death to America. They did it through the blood of our people. Car bombs in Beirut, rocket attacks on our ships, murders at our embassies, roadside bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan, funded and armed by Iranian Quds Force and IRGC killers. My generation of veterans carry the names of brothers who never came home. Brothers butchered by Iranian-backed roadside bombs and well-armed militias, thousands of our own. We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it. Their war on Americans has become our retribution against their Ayatollah and his death cult. It took the 47th president, a fighter who always puts America first, to finally draw the line after 47 years of Iranian belligerence. He reminded the world, as he has time and time again, being an American means something unbreakable. If you kill Americans, if you threaten Americans anywhere on earth, we will hunt you down without apology and without hesitation, and we will kill you. President Trump has also been very consistent. Crazy regimes like Iran, hell-bent on prophetic Islamist delusions, cannot have nuclear weapons. It's common sense. Many have said it, but it takes guts to actually enforce it, and our president has guts. Iran's stubborn and self-evident nuclear pursuits, their targeting of global shipping lanes, and their swelling arsenal of ballistic missiles and killer drones are no longer tolerable risks. Iran was building powerful missiles and drones to create a conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Let me say that again. A conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Our bases, our people, our allies, all in their crosshairs. Iran had a conventional gun to our head as they tried to lie their way to a nuclear bomb. It almost worked under Obama and his terrible deal, but not under this president. Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel. This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it. Today, in their desperation, the enemy is unmasked as Iranian missiles and drones rain down indiscriminately on the hotels, airports, apartments, and other civilian targets of their neighbors. Cowardly terrorist tactics from a regime that for decades has trafficked in cowardly terrorist tactics, lies, death, and destruction to this day. The Iranian leadership has built nothing except proxies and missiles and drones and deeply buried nuclear factories and facilities. Peaceful nuclear ambitions do not need to be buried underneath mountains. Last June, Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated their nuclear program to rubble. Afterward, we told them plainly, that's it, now make a deal. They arrogantly refused. We said, rebuild it and we'll stop you again, this time far worse. Well, President Trump, Secretary Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, they bent over backwards for real diplomacy, offering pathway after pathway to peace. I watched it. I was there. They tried over and over and over again earnest attempts at peace. The former regime had every chance to make a peaceful and sensible deal. But Tehran was not negotiating. They were stalling, buying time to reload their missile stockpiles and restart their nuclear ambitions. Their goal, hold us hostage, threatening to strike our forces. Well, President Trump doesn't play those games. And as Secretary Rubio said after the Maduro raid, if you don't know, now you know. President Trump puts America and Americans first. He doesn't hesitate, and neither do our troops. The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. We're hitting them surgically, overwhelmingly, and unapologetically. With every passing day, our capabilities get stronger and Iran's get weaker. We set the terms of this war from start to finish. Our ambitions are not utopian. They are realistic, scoped to our interests and the defense of our people and our allies. Speaking of people, we hope the Iranian people take advantage of this incredible opportunity. President Trump has been clear, now is your time. To Iranian security forces, choose wisely. President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes. Israel has clear missions as well, for which we are grateful. Capable partners, as we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force. America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history. B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles, and of course, classified effects. All on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives. As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell, and always will be. A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them, taken too soon by Iranian radicals. Before I turn it over to General Kane for the operational update, let me speak straight to you, the Joint Force, our warriors on the front lines. This is your moment. This is the generational turning point America has waited for since 1979, and since the rudderless wars of hubris, my generation, our generation, endured. Don't listen to the noise. Just stay focused. Our commander-in-chief is steady at the wheel. We face a determined enemy, but you are better. But we must prove it every single day. History doesn't care if we're tired, if we're scared, or if the fight feels big. It demands warriors who rise anyway. Peace through strength, the warrior ethos, lethality, unity of purpose, those are not slogans. They're the beating heart of what it means to wear the uniform, that uniform. You think clearly under fire, you act decisively in chaos, you uphold the Constitution, and you uphold our country without hesitation. We are not defenders anymore. We are warriors, trained to kill the enemy and break their will. History is watching. Be the force you swore an oath to be, focused, disciplined, lethal, and unbreakable. We will finish this on America First conditions of President Trump's choosing, nobody else's, as it should be. And know this above all, President Trump and I have your back, always. Through fire, through criticism, through fake news, through everything. We unleash you because you are the best, most powerful, most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. May Almighty God watch over you and his providential arms of protection extend over you. Godspeed, warriors, and keep going. General Kane, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, everyone.
We're listening in here to this update that we had from Pentagon officials just yesterday, featuring Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, also General Dan Kane. As they do switch speakers here, we're going to use this opportunity to step away for a brief commercial break. Much more of those comments when we come back.
Thank you guys. I see your comments. I see your super chats. Your cash apps. I appreciate you guys for your support. Where? There you go. Complete BS. What's BS? I keep saying I'm gonna just listen to one more part. I'm gonna listen to one more part with you guys. America is not officially at war. America is not at war. You just rolled out of bed? Do I look like that? Nah. It is what it is. I don't get dressed up for these streams. Why do you care what I look like? Why do you care what I look like? Some of you are worried about the wrong thing. Really. BS is bullshit. We don't want Iran to build long-range missiles. What are you guys saying? Just rolled out of bed, super duper. Everything he was saying was BS. A lot of people are going to disagree with you. You are beautiful to me. Oh, 51st State Gamer. Thank you. I never worry about that kind of stuff. Mary, you've been mad in the chat. Mary says, damn it, you're living in the old days when America was respected. So for Trump, America is still respected. America is respected. Don't believe the propaganda out there. The bombings in the Middle East are crazy. Well, hopefully there can be peaceful negotiations. I don't know what's going to happen, but Donald Trump is not going to back down when it comes to the nuclear facilities. We've destroyed every one of them. Trump is doing a fantastic job protecting our country, and that's what I'm going to say. All right, guys. That's your thing. Today is your birthday. Happy birthday. Hang on, let me listen. Happy birthday to you.
United States. U.S. Central Command, under the command of United States Navy Admiral Brad Cooper, commenced Operation Epic Fury. As I said, I'm going to walk you through the initial phases of the operation. But first, I want to express my deep condolences and the condolences of the Joint Force to the Department of War personnel killed and wounded in actions thus far. As the Secretary said, they're heroes and represent the best of our nation has to offer. They're true examples of what selfless service means. Our deepest and heartfelt condolences are with their families, their friends, and their units. We grieve with you and we will never forget you. Additionally, I stand here before you today grateful for each service member, planner, logistician, operator across our joint force, for our Department of War civilians, our intelligence community teammates, our interagency teammates who continue to stand in harm's way alongside us. I am proud of all of you as you take the fight to the enemy, and we are the best in the world at integrating, period. I want to extend my personal gratitude to the dedicated commanders and senior enlisted leaders and the enlisted members of the Joint Force who are fighting this fight across the CENTCOM AOR. In addition to Admiral Cooper and Fleet Master Chief Compton, I want to highlight a few today. U.S. Army Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Pat Frank, who along with his team are fighting the counter missile and counter drone fight. United States Navy Central Command Commander Vice Admiral Kurt Renshaw and his team, who are engaged with the Iranian Navy and projecting American naval combat power from the seas. And United States Air Force Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Derek France and his leadership team, who are crushing Iranian targets from the air. I want to highlight the support to the CENTCOM fight from other combatant commands who are directly involved with this effort, to include U.S. Spacecom, U.S. Cybercom, and U.S. UCOM. I also want to specifically call out United States Transportation Command and U.S. STRATCOM for their contributions to this fight. We cannot project American combat power at the time and place of our choosing without both. And finally, I want to express how deeply thankful I am for the continued service and sacrifice of the entire Joint Force and their families. Their unwavering commitment and dedication are the cornerstones of this effort. So let me start with a few details. First, to be clear, as the Secretary said, this is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses. But as the Secretary said, this is major combat operations. So let me talk about the preparation and the planning. On February 28th, the full strength of America's armed forces came together in a unified purpose against a capable and determined adversary. The United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, and our reserve components integrated across our combatant commands and began coordinated operations with the Israeli armed forces of an unprecedented scale. As the Secretary laid out, our military objectives are clear. Our mission is to protect and defend ourselves and, together with our regional partners, prevent Iran from the ability to project power outside of its borders and be ready for follow-on actions as appropriate. Across every domain, land, air, sea, cyber, the U.S. Joint Force delivered synchronized and layered effects designed to disrupt, degrade, deny, and destroy Iran's ability to conduct and sustain combat operations. On the U.S. side, this marked the culmination of months and in some cases years of deliberate planning and refinement against this particular target set. From precision strikes against key military infrastructure to persistent intelligence and targeting integration to the close coordination of the components across vast distances, this operation again demonstrated America's reach, readiness, and professionalism, and that of our joint united force. It was historic not only in the operational scope, but in the level of joint integration displayed across every element of the joint force. And as I said earlier, this work is just beginning and will continue. So now to talk a little bit about setting the force and setting the theater. On the order of the Secretary of War over the last 30 days to reinforce deterrence and provide the President with credible options should action be required, the Joint Force began to systematically reposition assets and personnel across the region. These movements ensured that U.S. forces remained postured, protected, and ready to respond decisively for any emerging threat. This deployment included thousands of service members from all branches, hundreds of advanced fourth and fifth generation fighters, dozens of refueling tankers, the Lincoln and Ford Carrier Strike Group and their embarked air wings, sustained flow of munitions, fuel, supplies, all supported with command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance network. And the flow of forces continues today. In fact, Admiral Cooper will receive additional forces even today. This rapid buildup of forces demonstrated the Joint Forces' ability to adapt and project power at the time and place of our nation's choosing. I want to highlight a couple specific cases for you. The Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, which many of you know was down in the Western Hemisphere, redeployed across the Atlantic to set the theater. The ship, her crew, their families, and the entire strike group took a deep breath, and as they always do, began planning to conduct combat operations. The integrated Reserve and National Guard forces have continued to demonstrate the value of America's reserve forces, including the Wisconsin Army National Guard operating in Kuwait and Iraq, and Air National Guard units from a variety of states to include Vermont and Virginia. In the case of the Vermont Air National Guard and the 158th Fighter Wing, they were mobilized for Operation Absolute Resolve and then were tasked to take their F-35As across the Atlantic instead of going home to be prepared to support this operation. The same is with our Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve Command tanker and mobility forces, who stepped right out of their civilian jobs to deploy and to protect the region. Lastly, I want to highlight the unsung heroes of warfare, our American logisticians and sustainment force, those who quietly work every day behind the scenes to project and sustain America's combat power. Our leaders from World War II were right when they said professionals do logistics. As regional tensions rose, the Joint Force elevated our force protection measures on the order of the Secretary and repositioned discreetly civilians and non-essential personnel designed to ensure the safety and security of our joint force. By the time operations began, only essential forces remained on our bases and in theater, all ready, capable to respond. So now let me move to H hour. At 3:38 p.m. on Friday, February 27th, the United States Central Command, through the Secretary of War, received the final go order from President Trump. The president directed, and I quote, "Operation Epic Fury is approved. No aborts. Good luck," close quote. In the region, every element of the Joint Force made their final preparations. Air defense batteries readied themselves, checking their systems to respond to Iranian attacks. Pilots and crews rehearsed their strike packages for the final time. Air crews began loading their final weapons, and two carrier strike groups began to move towards their launching points. Across the globe, our operations centers came alive in Tampa, Florida, here at the Pentagon, and of course forward in the Central Command AOR. As always, operational security was paramount as we sought to maintain and sustain the element of surprise. This operation was highly classified so that at H hour, the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence of action. The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. At H hour, the beginning of major combat operations, 01:15 local Eastern Daylight Time, 9:45 local AM Tehran time, as dawn crept up across the Central Command AOR, the skies surged to life. More than 100 aircraft launched from land, sea, fighters, tankers, airborne early warning, electronic attack, bombers from the states, and unmanned platforms, forming a single synchronized wave. This was a daylight strike based on a trigger event conducted by the Israeli Defense Forces, enabled by the U.S. intelligence community. The first shooters at sea were Tomahawks unleashed by the United States Navy, closed in on Iranian naval forces, and began to conduct strikes across the southern flank in Iran. On the ground, forces fired precision standoff weapons, measured, deliberate, precise, and lethal. This was a massive, overwhelming attack across all domains of warfare, striking more than 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. We are now roughly 57 hours into the operation. In the initial phase, CENTCOM's focus was systematic targeting of Iranians' command and control infrastructure, naval forces, ballistic missile sites, and intelligence infrastructure designed to daze and confuse them. Coordinated space and cyber operations effectively disrupted communications and sensor networks across the area of responsibility, leaving the adversary without the ability to see, coordinate, or respond effectively. The combined impact of these strikes, swift, precise, and overwhelming, has resulted in the establishment of local air superiority. This air superiority will not only enhance the protection of our forces, but also allow them to continue the work over Iran. Over the course of the last 2 days, the Joint Force has launched hundreds of missions from land and sea and delivered tens of thousands of pieces of ordnance. The effort continues to scale. This included American B-2 bombers, which again, similar to Midnight Hammer, flew a 37-hour round-trip sortie from the continental United States, dropping precision, penetrating munitions on Iranian underground facilities across the southern flank and slightly deeper. Additionally, Israel has separately executed hundreds of sorties against hundreds of targets. Beyond Air Force and Navy aircraft strike packages, coordinated salvos of precision standoff weapons from across the region have neutralized hundreds of pre-planned targets. As I mentioned earlier, in support of these kinetic operations, U.S. Cybercom and Spacecom have continuously layered effects to disrupt, disorient, and confuse the enemy. I will note that this operation had several combat firsts, which I'll allow at some point in the future Admiral Cooper to talk about since he owns the AOR. While we've prosecuted a relentless offensive campaign, our defense has been equally important. Across the theater, operations have remained steady and disciplined. Once again, our integrated air and missile defense network is performing exactly as it's intended. U.S. Patriot and THAAD batteries, along with ballistic missile defense-capable Navy destroyers, continue to coordinate and execute intercepts with precision and consistency. I wish that every American could hear the voice communications like I have as these joint operations centers remain calm, focused, and cool while executing under fire over and over again. Collectively, these systems have intercepted hundreds of ballistic missiles targeting U.S. forces, our partners, and regional stability. The threat from one-way attack UAVs has remained persistent. Our systems have proven effective in countering these platforms, engaging targets rapidly. Each intercept represents hundreds of hours of training, readiness, and technology all coming together to work as designed. We will remain vigilant in the counter UAV fight. And the defense of the region is not ours alone. As the threat grew, our partners surged in beside us. Air defense batteries in Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia joined the fight, proof positive that years of training, trust, and hard-earned integration pay off. I am aware of the loss of 3 U.S. Air Force F-15Es overnight in the region. I am grateful for the safety of the crews, and we know that this was not from hostile enemy fire. As this matter's under investigation, I'll not comment further on this. Let me close. Operations will remain active across the theater and across the globe. The U.S. forces are postured not only to maintain pressure, but to respond and adapt as required. Operation Epic Fury stands as a reminder of what the United States military uniquely delivers: the ability to project power on a global scale with speed, surprise, precision, and overwhelming force when and where our nation requires it. What we've demonstrated over the past several days reflects years of investment in readiness, joint integration, and professionalism of the joint force. As major combat operations continue across CENTCOM, we remain engaged globally. America's joint force retains the credibility, capacity, and flexibility to respond to any contingency anywhere in the world at any time. To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail. To the American people, your joint force remains steady, frosty, calm, and focused. Your service members are trained, disciplined, and determined. We understand the risks of this mission and the weight of the responsibility that we carry. We also recognize that our families also shoulder the burden at home. You are a part of this too. I am proud today, as I am every day, to stand as a member of America's joint force. There is no mission too complex, no distance too great, and no adversary too determined for the men and women who wear our nation's uniform. We mourn our fallen, we honor their families, and we continue our mission with focus, unity, and strength. And now I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
We're listening in here to this update provided by the Pentagon just yesterday, featuring General Dan Kane and also Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. We're going to step away for a brief commercial break, continuing our coverage after this.
Are we still friends? Okay, you guys asked me about Saudi Arabia. Let me show you this clip. Well, wait, I hope I have it. I'm just going to show it to you on my phone. Let me know if you can see it.
Here in Riyadh, Ministry
Hang on.
by two drones impacting the U.S. Embassy here in Riyadh. Ministry of Defense officials here say that it made minor damage and lit a fire. No indications of casualties, but not long after the impact here in Riyadh, the State Department issued a shelter-in-place warning for U.S. Embassy staff here in Riyadh, for U.S. consular officials in Jeddah in the west, and for U.S. consular officials in Dhahran to the east, much closer to Iran. The fact that Iran has broken through Saudi Arabia's defenses, it appears, been able to penetrate the capital, Riyadh, is being taken very, very seriously by officials in this city. Saudi Arabia is seen as a higher value target for Iran to hit than some of the other Gulf states that are closer. It sends a stronger message. The concern now is how the this country, the United States, the GCC may respond. Expect a long night, what I've been told.
Yeah.
I was in contact with, my colleagues in the Persian Gulf, and I explained for them that, we have no intention to attack them, but we are actually attacking the American bases in the act of self-defense.
I think it was interesting that he talked about the effort to reach out to the Gulf states and tell them that Iran was simply attacking American bases. I think this was a very foolish mistake by Iran. Iran makes these mistakes all the time in its negotiations, in its dealings with its neighbors. I've often found that one is surprised at how clumsy they are. They should never have attacked the Gulf states, in particular Saudi Arabia. The Gulf states had made clear they did not want any part of this military operation. They had said bases couldn't be used. Some of them had said airspace can't be used. They had privately counseled President Trump not to do this attack. What the Iranians should have done was driven a wedge between the United States and the Gulf states, and made clear that they did not view the Gulf states as responsible for this. Instead, by foolishly attacking the Gulf states, they have joined together those states. You've seen the UAE has made very strong statements. The Saudis, very importantly, made a very strong statement saying that they regarded the attack as outrageous, and they were going to, in some way or the other, retaliate, or they supported any retaliation. So the Iranians have already misplayed this.
I was in contact
So-
with
You said Trump is a good president? I believe so.
Tehran, we have offices in Mashhad, Kerman, Shiraz, Isfahan, and Dohran. UNHCR, according to our updated figures, Iran hosts 1.6 million refugees and other people in need of international protection. In Iran, UNHCR works to support the government in maintaining inclusive services such as health, education, and social protection, promoting self-reliance of forcibly displaced people, and providing individual support to the most vulnerable. UNHCR continues assisting and supporting refugees, however, with some reduced operational capacity. UNHCR is closely monitoring developments at this time in terms of population movement. There is no significant movement across the border with Turkey or along the Islam Kila border between Afghanistan and Iran. Just to complement of what colleagues were saying on the situation in Lebanon, heavy displacement is being reported across parts of southern Lebanon, the Bekaa and southern suburbs of Beirut. After Israel issued evacuation warnings to the residents of more than 53 Lebanese villages and intense airstrikes across all three parts of Lebanon. As of yesterday, the conservative estimates suggest that nearly 30,000 people were hosted and registered at collective shelters. Many more slept in their cars on the side of roads or were still stuck in traffic jams on the roads leaving the south to Beirut. Many families are leaving by car and by foot with limited belongings and seeking safety in other areas. While many have spent their night in their cars, as mentioned, remaining uncertain where they will stay. UNHCR has since early morning mobilized its resources to be able to respond to the emerging needs in coordination with the Lebanese government, including their disaster management unit and our humanitarian partners. We are prepared to scale up assistance as needed. As you heard the call, civilians must be protected at all times. We reiterate the urgent need to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure and ensure safe access for those fleeing and facilitate safe and unhindered humanitarian access to people in need. UNHCR is closely monitoring the situation inside the country and coordinating and collaborating with the authorities there. On the Lebanon-Syrian border, some increase has been witnessed in terms of population movements. A few hundred more people, which was observed in the number of Syrians who are refugees inside Lebanon, crossing into Syria from Syria into Lebanon. Our staff have been present. We have a contingency plan for any possible influx from Lebanon in case things develop. And in terms of our preparedness, UNHCR's emergency supplies are available for rapid deployment from UNHCR's global stockpiles. We have our centers in Dubai, Termez in Uzbekistan, and Copenhagen, as well as from regional hubs in Lebanon and Syria. These include emergency relief items whenever a humanitarian crisis happens. I stop here. Thank you.
We're listening in here to an update being provided by the United Nations. They're specifically talking about the humanitarian crisis that is now unfolding across the Middle East, given the escalating strikes. We're stepping away for another brief commercial break, continuing with more of this coverage on the other side.
All right. All right, you guys, I have been on this all day. What are you guys saying? Help me understand, why aren't the city of citizens leaving? I don't know. I don't know. Help me understand. I had a clip for you guys and I just lost it. I just lost it. I'm tired. What are you guys saying? I don't think I'm gonna find it. It's gone. I was gonna show you guys more of what was happening in Saudi Arabia, but I think my brain's tired. I'll let you know when my friend in Iran gets a hold of me. You have a friend in Iran? Huh. I learned a lot tonight. Did you guys? Oh, wait, I think I found it. Oh, no, never mind.
Being given right now in a briefing from the United Nations
Sorry,
talking
guys.
about the humanitarian crisis that's unfolding in the Middle East. On the other side of this, my colleague Josh Breslow continues the coverage.
Safely carry out their humanitarian mission. The IFRC has activated every level from global to regional and local to ensure coordination and readiness to respond, including IFRC logistics pipeline and prepositioning of humanitarian goods. We have immediately activated our Disaster Response Emergency Fund, the IFRC DREF, allocating 1.5 million CHF to support the response in Iran. The Iranian Red Crescent Society has mobilized its network of volunteers and staff. Emergency medical teams were immediately dispatched to impacted sites to provide on-site triage and first aid, stabilization of injured individuals, and medical evacuation to referral hospitals. Red Crescent pharmacies and medical facilities nationwide have been placed on full alert to ensure continuity of access to medicines and emergency medical supplies. The National Society is also supporting search and rescue operations. The fund allocated from the IFRC aims to deliver life-saving assistance for 200,000 people through a 9-month operational time frame. The budget will cover the procurement of items to support emergency health services like trauma kits, splints, defibrillators, and evacuation chairs. All national Red Cross and Red Crescent societies in the region are on high alert for any possible response needed. And since we are talking about Lebanon this morning, the Lebanese Red Cross, as always, I would add, has already activated all the emergency health services across the country. In Israel, Magen David Adom has mobilized staff and volunteers across the country. All 39,000 staff and volunteers are mobilized together with the entire fleet of ambulances, mobile intensive care units, intensive care buses, and rapid response vehicles. The Magen David Adom in Israel teams treated 121 people as of 1st of March, including trauma shrapnel injuries, and anxiety cases. They are also supporting evacuation from impact sites. And finally, the MDA launched a national blood donation campaign with drives in secure location to maintain emergency readiness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tommaso. And to conclude this series of briefing, I just would like to tell you that we are going to distribute the statements that came from Jorge Moreira da Silva, the UN Under Secretary General, and UNOPS Executive Director. You will have it in the mail immediately. So let me open now the floor to questions. Let's start with Jeremy. Jeremy, Radio France Internationale.
Thank you, Alessandra. I've got two questions for you. The one for WFP first. I think the person from WFP mentioned 25% cuts, ration cuts. I didn't quite understand if it was only in Gaza or if it was globally, if the airline is not going back to normal. And the second question would be to Ravina. Ravina, you mentioned the attack on the school in Iran. So if I got that right, if it was proven that it was an Israeli or US missile that did strike a school for girls in Iran, it will be a war crime. Is that correct?
Okay, let me start with Samer.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy, for the question. Yes, 25% of daily needs of food for the people inside Gaza that we would be forced to reduce to if we're not able to get the food levels up to the level required in Gaza Strip. So when the ceasefire happened, we were able to provide 1.6 million people with 100% of their daily food needs. And now gradually we're decreasing to almost 50%. And now if the access is not fully back as required, we will go back to 25% of daily needs.
Very clear.
Thanks, Jeremy. What is clear is that this attack that hit the girls' school was absolutely devastating. I mean, children, little girls in the middle of the school day, at the beginning of the school day, being killed in this manner, backpacks with, blood stains on them. This is absolutely horrific. And I think if there's any image that captures the essence of the destruction, despair, and senselessness and cruelty of this conflict, those are the images. On international humanitarian law and what it says, international humanitarian law spells out that any attack must comply with the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precaution to protect civilians. If attacks are found to be directed against civilians or civilian objects or indiscriminate attacks, they are serious violations of international humanitarian law and may amount to war crimes. On this specific incident, we don't have enough information to make a factual determination of what happened. And as I said in my statement, the onus is on the parties that carried out the attacks to properly investigate it, and not only investigate it, but to make sure that the results of any investigation are made public and that there is accountability and redress for the victims.
Indeed. Other questions in the room? No, I don't. Yes, Emma, Reuters.
Good morning. I was wondering on the death toll for Iran, which you mentioned, Ravina, since it's coming from the Red Crescent, Tommaso, is that something that you can confirm, actually? And also on your office, the Iranian ambassador yesterday at the Human Rights Council was talking about an attack on your office. Could you just clarify exactly what happened in Iran, what was hit and what was the damage and who did it? A question for WFP, please, on Gaza. I believe you mentioned crossings, plural, for Gaza that will open again. Can you just say which ones and when they will open? And could you elaborate a little bit more on the supply chain challenges with the disruptions to shipping routes and air travel and so on? How could that impact other people suffering from hunger around the world? Thank you.
Tommaso, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Emma, for your question. Unfortunately, as I said at the beginning of my speech, we still don't have the clear picture, so we are still clarifying all the different information with the National Society colleagues and relevant colleagues, and we need also to take in account that communication is a huge, immense challenge at the moment in Iran. So what we know is that Iranian Red Crescent teams, for instance, were deployed in the site where the girls' school was attacked, but then we still don't have all the proper information to talk about the different incidents. Thanks. It's the same. I mean, we saw a video where basically, I mean, I think that is public domain, and maybe you also saw it with some Iranian Red Crescent colleagues and the Iranian Red Crescent emblem in the building, with some smoke behind the building. We know surely that. I mean, we understood this morning in a very short communication that we had with our head of delegation that they had some issues to the office, like windows broken. So basically not being able to enter and to work from the office. But this doesn't mean that we are confirming that there was an attack or not. We are still verifying all the information.
Thank you, Tommaso. Sameh?
Yeah, sorry, you can hear me now. On the Gaza one, it's one crossing I'm aware of that was announced today, Kerem Shalom or Kerem Abu Salam. That's the only one that today we get the news from the Israeli side that they will allow humanitarian aid. We'll be checking with the team if the manifests and the trucks going forward will happen starting today or tomorrow. So that's the only crossing I'm aware. On your point on the impact, I think it has impact across all the operations that we are running. One, predictable funding. There is a need for predictable funding, especially in times when growing needs are coming into the additional caseloads of people that we need to serve. We're already underfunded in the majority of the 8 or 9 countries that are impacted now. We already have, like the colleague from UNHCR said, the refugee populations that we were announcing actually this week, that we have to suspend operations for them in places like Jordan and potentially Lebanon. So we are strained with funding resources. The other thing is, of course, the length and severity of this crisis, and of course, how it will impact people movements and the numbers of people that will have to leave their homes will have a direct impact on us as humanitarians. And with the access to the Strait of Hormuz or the Red Sea, we saw it previously, those impact on supply chain and supply chain routes have immediate impact on the prices, because definitely the markets will be affected, not just by the fuel, but the food prices will be affected. Insurance for actually moving of commodities across continents will be affected. So we'll be really putting additional pressure for us to really support those people that we need to serve.
Yeah, John.
Yes.
Sorry, John Zarokostas from France 4 and The Lancet.
Good morning. I was wondering, I see Tariq in the crowd, if there is any information from the WHO country rep in Tehran. There have been reports that 9 hospitals have been hit, 5 in Tehran and 4 in regional cities. And Tommaso, there have also been reports that the IRCS Rehabilitation Center was hit in Tehran. Do you have any confirmation? Thank you.
You want to start answering, Tommaso? And Tariq, can you come, please?
Yeah, thanks, John, for the question. I think my answer is kind of the same as before. We have been seeing some photos and videos also about this rehabilitation center, but we still cannot confirm what has happened and how is the situation there. Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. Indeed, the national, thank you, John, for the question. The National Emergency Medical Organization stated that several hospitals and medical emergency posts have been damaged, and that one paramedic had been injured. We don't have more details. You've seen that on May 1st, the Tehran Gandhi Hospital was reportedly damaged during the bombardment of the Iranian capital. No casualties were reported, but patients were evacuated to another hospital. Just to give a few more details that we had from the Ministry of Health. According to the Ministry of Health in Iran, the provision of health services is continuing without interruption. Medical equipment, medicines, vaccines, and blood product stockpiles remain stable. There is no shortage of medicines, medical equipment, devices, or infant formulas. The supply chain and distribution of drugs are functioning so far normally. WHO has not been asked for the assistance, but we stand ready to provide if needed. Just to really repeat that protection of health is not negotiable. The protection of civilians, health workers, and health facilities is an obligation under international humanitarian law. And then the most immediate public health impact of this escalation is not only new casualties, but it's also regional shock that disrupts care delivery, supply chains, staff safety, and humanitarian access across multiple crises that have already overstretched local health systems. So I will stop here.
Thank you very much, Tariq. If there are no other questions in the room, I'll go to the platform. Okay, so Michelle Legrand, Geneva Solutions.
Hi, thank you very much. My question is for Samer regarding logistics, again, on this issue. I apologize if you already answered this or you addressed this at the beginning, but I'm not sure I understood regarding your hubs in Dubai and in that region. So if I understand, these are working, they're functioning correctly, or is there some disruption there? What's the landscape there? Thank you.
Samer?
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, our hub in Dubai is functional. Of course, we're looking also at others like the one in Egypt, where we're supporting Gaza and Sudan, but also we're looking at how to actually use land routes, which will actually increase the cost on us to move commodities out from the humanitarian hub in Dubai. So, but also we're looking at the potential extension of times that it will take actually to move those commodities from there to other locations. We also have hubs in other areas across the globe. So we're actually assessing where the needs are and see what's the fastest way. And Turkey is one of our main food procurement hubs that we're operating out of.
All right, wanted to bring you some of those remarks coming in from the United Nations as they're holding this briefing and taking questions on the situation there on the ground over in Iran and Lebanon. And you are looking at a live image over Beirut in Lebanon there on the right-hand side of your screen. You can see the smoke is rising as Israel now says that its military is conducting strikes both in Iran at this hour as well as over in Lebanon. Now, of course, they are targeting the IRGC over in Iran, specifically in Tehran, the capital there, but also over in Beirut, they are targeting the Hezbollah terror group. If you are just joining us, we are just past the top of the hour. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm going to be here for the next several hours as we break down all of your top stories and live events from across the country and the world. And of course, the big story we're following here, Operation Epic Fury. Also, a big thank you to my colleague, Corella Hara. She has been here with you for the last several hours, very dark and early this morning. Right now, we are going to head to a quick break, but we will be right back with more live coverage on the other side. Stay with us.
We were just we still friends, you guys. All right, you guys, let me lay it down. I've been here close to 4 hours. I didn't even get to cover the Epstein, but my brain is tired. Hillary Clinton and Bill's deposition was heated. We'll talk about it later. I'll either stream it or play clips for you guys. I don't know. I'm praying for the country. Y'all got any final thoughts for me? Look at me. I'm like delirious. I can't even speak to you guys. Thank y'all for supporting my stream. Very hard with YouTube to put out this kind of commentary. daughter, wife, sister. Oh, it's very hard to put this kind of commentary out. So those of you that support me, that leaves me a comment under my community post, whatever, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for supporting me. Claude, you held it down tonight. Dr. Manhattan earlier. We love you. Thanks for giving us the platform. 51 State Gamer always. Even if you guys don't agree with me, you don't agree with my mods, it's okay. My mod doesn't agree with me most of the time. But you guys are always welcome. Speak your piece. This is a safe space to speak so you can explore ideas, be respectful. It gets heated sometimes, but I think it's because we all love our country. I hope. I love my country. Donald Trump said he was going to strike Iran, and Donald Trump struck Iran. Donald Trump is known to do what he says he's going to do, and we knew exactly why we were electing Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been in the office for a little over a year, and Donald Trump is whether you like him or not, he's a hardworking president. He's a hardworking president. Now, on that note, Jose, we good? All right, you guys. I love you guys. Be safe out there. Damage, be good. Stay safe. All of you, be good. And I'll talk to you guys soon, okay? Feel free to like, comment, and all that good stuff. Bye-bye. Hype up the video. Let me lay down. I'll talk to you guys soon. Ancient, huh? No, I gotta lay it down. Drew, good night / morning. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.